We're back again with another episode of Nobody's Listening here on the Outpost Unknown YouTube channel. If you're looking at me right now, I've bumped the contrast way up high in Premiere because my
Yes.
Chromebook, Rachel, you can't see me, correct?
No, you look like I can see you're a silhouette.
Okay.
A silhouette with like every once in a while I'll see your glasses flash a little bit. That's about
Yeah.
it. And I've got my brightness turned up, so I don't even
Yeah.
know, man.
And maybe there is a way for me to turn brightness up on this Chromebook. I don't know because I'm a Luddite. I don't know how to do any of this tech stuff, so I'll try to figure it out. But I'll bump it up in post. Just pretend that you can see my face and look deep into my eyes, and we'll be fine.
You mean
as we
like
get
I
through
do
this.
every day, Matthew?
Absolutely,
Every day.
absolutely. So we have a lot to talk about tonight. Something really small happened about a week or so ago. What happened, Rachel? Just a week or so ago.
Oh, only the most important trailer of the year dropped. That's
Oh,
all.
what trailer was that?
NBD. That would be the Acolyte,
Okay.
aka my most anticipated Star Wars, except Andor season 2.
Yeah.
This is right. Like here's Andor season 2 Acolyte right here. Bump it up against it. Yeah.
Okay. And I know we were both very, very excited for the Acolyte, but you are very, very excited for it. So the trailer dropped. I think it's only like a minute or something long. It's not very long at all. It's very, very short. It's
No.
more like a teaser sort of trailer. What are your thoughts on the trailer?
I mean, they're doing a good job of drawing out the mystery. Like we've been trying to, there's hints and whispers of what it could be about. And, we've been trying to figure that out for months upon months now. And even with this teaser trailer, while it doesn't necessarily refute any of those rumors, I don't know that it gives us much more context. What it does give us is looks at the characters, which I've been dying to see,
Yeah.
and the sort of tone and the visual style, because it's set in a totally different time period. So I wasn't
Yeah.
sure exactly what it was going to look like aside from the like handful of teeny tiny like set visit photos that we saw and I think Vanity Fair last year. So it was kind of exciting to kind of see what the vision for it was. But yeah, that's mostly what I took away from it. How
Yeah.
about you?
Um, I like the trailer. I will say that I felt a little underwhelmed when I saw the first. And again, this is just a teaser, so I'm not going to hold it against like a teaser trailer of only a minute. I thought we would get a little bit more sort of from the perspective of the bad guys here, because I guess that's what I just assumed this show was kind of about. It's like it's about the villains and it's villain forward. We're kind of getting the perspective
Mm.
of them as they're going around, and it did seem to me it was like, okay, we're following around a big group of Jedi, like on a murder mystery sort of thing, and trying to discover, because they say like Jedi are being killed. What's
Hmm.
happening here? I'm cool with that. I'm on board with that story for sure if that's what they're telling. But I guess I went into this thinking, all right, cool, we're gonna see bad guys doing stuff, and we didn't really get that here. So even though it's underwhelming, it's not in a negative way, if that makes any sense. It was more like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, I'm stoked to see this, and I didn't get it, so I'm like, okay, waiting for the next trailer to really tease out what this is
Hmm.
about here. And I did think, we'll talk about the negative reaction that this trailer got by 2/3 of the internet allegedly. Um, but I was watching some reactions to this, and I do feel that there is an interesting question. And again, you can't decide this based on 1 minute of footage in a teaser trailer. So everyone calm down. Everybody out there on the internet, calm the fuck down. It's not that big of a deal. Wait till you watch the show before you make some sort
Yeah.
of crazy judgment call. But I
But
do
where are
think
we going to get all of our hot takes, Matthew? Where are we going to get all of our hot takes?
I don't know. I don't know. All that YouTube ad click money that these monetized channels are raking in, because that's really what it's all about.
Mhm.
People they just want the clicks to get all that. But I do think it's interesting that established canon, and you know that I am not big into canon at all. I have fuck canon
No.
in my mind. I think canon is
Yeah.
stupid. I think it changes all the time, as we'll probably talk a little bit about later today on the Bad Batch. How canon just kind of morphs and changes at the whim of whatever creator
Mhm.
wants to do it. But I do find it interesting that, like, how is Leslie Headland going to tell this story in a greater context of, fast forward to the Phantom Menace. Nobody has any idea that the Sith are around. Nobody. They've been extinct for 1,000 years. Like, what are you talking about? You ran into a Sith in the deserts of Tatooine, Qui-Gon. What the fuck are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. They're gone. Yoda doesn't mention anything. Nobody mentions anything. No one knows any of this happens. And yet, from the minute of the trailer, you got a lot of Jedi that are like fighting a red lightsabered bad guy. You would think something like that would rise to Yoda's knowledge level of some point. So I'm curious, and I'll ask you how you sort of see this. Do you think that they will come up with some sort of explanation as to why the Jedi 100 years from now apparently were oblivious that the Sith were running around doing stuff when just 100 years prior they were murdering Jedi apparently all over the place? And if they don't really address that, do you think that's a problem at all?
Well, I
Canon
mean,
wise with everything else.
I think it is canon that people have very, very short-term memories in
Yeah,
Star Wars
that's true.
because something similar happened with the Jedi, if you recall, where, within a generation, everyone's like, It's a myth. They're
Yeah,
fairies,
it's
like,
gone.
so that there is precedent for people not remembering things. But I could also see it as something I think we've really complicated the way that we see the Jedi and the way that the Jedi work, and I could see there being like an intentional misinformation or bearing of secrets, like whatever the like Jedi equivalent of the warehouse at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, like that
Mm,
information, maybe they kept it quiet. Maybe we're going to find out the scope of this is quite small, and they were able to kind of like keep it hush hush to prevent sort of hysteria or any like yeah, some sort of propaganda around it. I would not be
yeah,
surprised. So I think there are definitely absolutely ways that you could especially since this is supposed to be kind of like their ideas for a second season, but as a self-contained story, like I think there would be ways that if this is resolved, there could be like an undercurrent of ongoing problems that like kind of presenting to the like forward facing that
yeah,
could be suppressing. So I think yeah, I don't actually see a problem with it at all. I also think the galaxy is huge. There's probably all kinds of stories to be told in corners and pockets that would be like earth-shattering to canon, but
yeah,
because it's on the other side of the galaxy, just never really made it into like the mainstream whatever you know, whatever timeline we consider to be the mainstream of canon and
yeah,
information in the Star
yeah.
Wars world.
And I'm totally fine. Like, I don't have a problem. Like, people seem to just they want to cling to everything so closely that nothing can be changed or altered. People forget George Lucas himself changed shit within his own original trilogy. Han shot first. Everybody, fuck canon. Han shot first.
Yeah.
I don't care if it shows Greedo now shows shot first. Han shot first. Canon is stupid. I do think that, let me ask you this in terms of like a creative sort of thing. Let's say you were creating this show and you wanted to create like, okay, we're setting it 100 years before. We're not connecting it to the. I guess Yoda could still be running around. I mean, Yoda shows up in this series at some point, right? Do you think Yoda shows up? He's on the council.
I mean, Yoda show up? I
Yeah,
honestly,
that's a good
this is where
question.
my lack of, like, understanding the timeline becomes a problem. I
Well,
in terms of
Yoda's about eight
creativity,
hundred
I
years
think
old at this point.
oh, well, then if he's on the council, then
Yeah,
I would not be surprised at all to see Yoda show up. Yeah.
yeah.
I think that actually makes sense, and maybe he's the final person who's like, "Bury that shit."
And you just got to what I was going to ultimately ask you, because I think all these sort of like diehard Star Wars fans, and I can put myself in this way in terms of Luke Skywalker, right? Luke Skywalker, people love that character because of a specific reason. And then when Ryan Johnson uh, changed it, subverted our expectations, people hated the change. It fundamentally changed how people saw Luke Skywalker and how people wanted Luke Skywalker to be. And that caused a
Mhm.
humongous rift in the fandom, I think we can say, to be kind. I think what a lot of these like YouTubers who are bitching and moaning about this trailer and giving it massive dislikes on YouTube. Because I think like it's 2 to 1 the dislike to like ratio. And Lucasfilm came out and said, "Oh, we got 51 million views in the first 24 hours," and then people are like, people are hate watching it and dropping it down. I don't believe numbers that any of these companies throw out. Honestly, I think it's all a bunch of PR nonsense. But I think
Mhm.
what people are really concerned about, to sort of speak to that wing, get rid of the noise surrounding it, but just what people are concerned about is like, if you get to the point, if this show says Yoda knew about all this stuff and intentionally hid what was going on, didn't tell anybody at the time, 100 years later, like, oh yeah, the Sith are around, right? Because Yoda in the prequels, he has no idea. He's like, the dark side clouds everything. No one Yoda didn't even know that the Sith were around at that point in time. If something is like Yoda buried this, knew what was going on, and hid it, I think people are going to revolt against this show, because they're going to say like, this is another character that people loved for his wisdom and the way he is, and now you're telling me that he covered up the murder of like who knows how many Jedi to hide the Sith threat and did not bring it up in the prequels. People are going to have a massive, massive problem with that. So,
Yeah.
because it's fundamentally changing the character, and a lot of people are going to say that's in a bad way to make Yoda look like a bad guy, essentially, at that point in time. So I hope they don't go that route, honestly, because it's going to be a shit show, in terms of just the amount of hate that's going to be flying out.
Mhm.
But
Honestly, I wouldn't care at all. I like complicated
mm,
characters. I feel like one of the things that the later generations of Star Wars has done a good job of is presenting us with really complicated characters, but I don't want it for Leslie Headland. That's basically where I don't she's going to receive so much hate for having the audacity of being a woman working in Star Wars. I would hate to see how much hate she would get for that. Like that
oh, it'd
actually
be
to
bad.
me.
It'd be
Right,
real bad.
which to me tells you exactly how another sort of impact negative impact of, like, the rabid negative fandom is that it is suppressing creativity. Like, maybe there's something really interesting to unpack there.
Yeah,
Maybe it adds a lot of nuance to who Yoda is when we meet him on Dagobah because he's made errors in judgment. Those kinds of things could enrich the character, but we'll never know potentially because there's people are so it is like that black and white binary thinking that
yeah,
it would ruin a character to have them be complicated and to be flawed, but ultimately he's still ultimately the Yoda that we know when we meet him later, but he has a past. Maybe this is
right.
part of his past, and I don't know. Like I,
Yeah,
ugh,
there's definitely going to be a minority of people who are like, "This is great. I love complicated Yoda," but I think the vast majority of people will be like, "No, no, no. You could have written this so that Yoda was gone. He was on the other side of the galaxy. He had no idea what
yeah,
was going on." And like I said, we have no idea if Yoda's even going to show up in this show. Who knows?
yeah.
But I think that it is an interesting thing to think about, if literally Jedi are being murdered by at least something, if not a Sith, something similar to a Sith. That it would be strange that 100 years later, the Jedi Council is like, "What are you talking about? These people have been extinct for 1,000 years. What are you bringing this information to us?" It's going to be interesting to see how Leslie Headland threads that needle and explains story wise, and it could be an awesome story. I'm ready to see it. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah,
But
me
yeah,
too.
I think it's going to
Me too.
be.
I would highly recommend you watch some of her other work. She is
I've
pretty
heard
amazing.
nothing
So
but good things. I've heard nothing but good things. So yeah.
yeah.
I'm trying to think. Is there anything else that we want to talk about the acolyte? Oh, do you think? What was the question I was going to ask? I was going to ask you something about who, because the big tease at the end of the thing is, right, there's all the Jedi light up and a red lightsaber's swinging around,
Yeah.
and they're all gonna fight whoever. Do you
Mhm.
think that the Sith, for lack of a better term, I'll just call him a Sith for now. We don't know
Yeah.
who is Amandla Stenberg. That's her name. Is she? Do you think she's the acolyte, or do you think we're looking at something completely different? Because she doesn't have like a lightsaber or anything. She's running around trying to kill Jedi with like a dagger.
Yeah.
Um, how do you see this story sort of playing out? What do you think her role is, and who do you think this Sith mystery Sith is?
I don't think she's the acolyte. I don't, because, like, one of the rumors is it's about siblings, and, like, one of them, I think, got recruited into the Jedi and one of them didn't. I don't know exactly the details. I feel like it would be too on the note. Like, I feel like there's a bait and switch coming. I don't think that they would show us who the acolyte is in the trailer.
Okay.
The fact, and also I kind of like paused and tried to get a look at the hand that actually catches the red lightsaber, and it does look more like a masculine hand. So I think there's a good chance we know that it's someone who has infiltrated, like, the rumor is that it's someone who has infiltrated the Jedi, right? So
Hmm,
I think it's
okay.
one of these, like, heroic characters. I think what, like, when you're saying, like, "Oh, I was hoping we were gonna see bad guys." I'm like, "Yeah, but that's, like, the twist, right? Is that it's like a spy thing to some degree." So
Yeah.
I think you actually are seeing villains, you just don't recognize them yet. And
Okay.
I have there's kind of a guy that has sort of, like, twists in his hair, who looks like he could be Amandla Stenberg's sibling. He was in, Russian Doll, which is a great series that Leslie Headland created. I think he might be the acolyte. That's my theory, based,
Okay.
like, on just absolutely pulling it out of my ass, but as I was watching it, I was like,
Okay. Yeah, I have no see. Lucasfilm did this whole uh, High Republic sort of publishing thing and comics and books. I've intentionally just
mhm,
stayed away from all of it because I wanted to
mhm,
go into this not really knowing anything about these characters or anything like that. I have read that some of the characters from the publishing stuff are in this show, so I'm sure a lot of people who went out and read that kind of stuff is probably very excited 'cause they probably know exactly who all these people are. I like the idea. I'm like, I don't know who any of these people are. I know
yeah,
nothing about what's happening. I'm just going to sort of go into this, and hopefully Leslie Headland takes me on a great journey. And it's a cool story.
mm,
And if they got sort of other seasons planned out, even just hey, I've got an outline of what season two could be or something. It leads me to believe
mhm,
that there's a much bigger story going on here than just, hey, here's a Sith with an acolyte, and somehow, because honestly, as a crypto, I don't even know how you end a show like this. I honestly don't, because it's like, well, we know
yeah,
logically how this goes. I mean, eventually Darth Plagueis shows up, and eventually Palpatine is his, and then Darth Tenebrae was Plagueis's. I mean, that's all canon. So maybe it's not Sith at all. Maybe that's the twist.
right.
These aren't Sith.
Maybe it's not.
Maybe it's just
Yeah,
some dark
maybe.
side user that wants to do something completely new or different. In any event, I think the trailer was cool. It got me excited to watch it. I'm looking forward to seeing the bigger trailer, and we'll sort of go from there. And I think
Yeah,
that all the people bitching and complaining about this can go fuck yourselves. I mean, seriously, this is stupid.
yeah,
Just wait to watch the show. watch
yeah, I
watch
was
the show.
like, this is the first time, like, when I saw the headline and you put it through, and my first was my usual, like, "Ugh," reaction, and then I read the article really quickly before we started recording because I was not gonna be late today, and I felt sad. I felt
Yeah,
sad for these people. Like, it not in, like, and I'm not saying that in a, like, a condescending way, like, I actually felt like kind of a kind of empathy that I haven't in the past, and that I was just like, "Wow, what," like, to be so unhappy. You know what I mean? That you have the energy to expend
it's just
on this
media.
in this way. It
There's an
just
infinite
kind
amount
of
of
feels
stories coming.
sad. Yeah, it
I
just
watched a YouTuber who was reacting to this trailer, and he was going frame by frame. Like, how it opens up with all of, like, the younglings, and there's that Jedi who's walking by. He's like, "What do you see?" And someone's like, "Oh, it's peace and balance." And then the little girl's like, "Fire!" And then whatnot. He's going frame by frame. He's like, "There's not a single white man in this entire room." And he went through the whole trailer. It's like, "There's no white people in this entire thing. Woke, woke, woke." I'm like, who gives a fuck? Like, this is so stupid that people are
does he
bitching and moaning
ever
and crying about this.
watch the many, 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 many projects out there that are nothing but white people and go like, "Wow,
Has he never seen A
this
New
is
Hope?
all white." I mean, is he ever like, "This is real white. I really
Yeah.
wish there was some more diversity in here." I'm guessing no, which is
Yeah.
perhaps something to reflect on, sir.
Yeah, no, it's okay because Rachel, it's the aliens. The aliens are the others, right? That's the diversity that we
Mm,
get. Remember, that's the
yes,
diversity that we
yes.
need. So, um,
I
yeah,
feel so represented by the Twi'leks,
yeah,
yes.
it's
Thank you.
God, it's maddening. It's like I get on YouTube and I'm like flipping around trying to find reaction videos. It's like how do you because you know what happens? You watch a video and you start watching it and then you find out that the person's some like lunatic right wing nut job complaining about everything and then it infects your YouTube algorithm. So then later
Yes.
on, boom, more videos like this pop
Yeah,
up. I'm like, Jesus Christ. It's
yeah.
like I just want it. So if you're listening out there, you have a welcome place here. This is a safe space for Star Wars fans. Come on over. It's going to be okay.
Yeah,
It's going to be okay. But with
yeah.
that,
I
let's
have a
just.
lot of
Oh, go
mm,
ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say I have a lot of fears about what's happening at the top. I don't know, are you following this at all?
Fears at the
The
top.
attempted coup that they're trying to, that's happening potentially on the board of Disney right now?
Oh, the people trying to get some board members on or whatever and
They're
oust
trying to,
Tiger or whatever.
so one billionaire in particular, I can't remember his first name, but his last name is Peltz, um, is trying to get 2 seats. He's basically trying to wrest control out of Bob Iger's hand because he feels that Disney is too woke.
How can you how can you get control if you only have two board seats? Like,
I
there's
mean,
got to be more
I
than
think that there's I think like everything in our lives now, it's politicized and like very so I think there are enough people on the board that if he is able to wrest control of it, well, he'll have like a deciding share.
that's stupid. Um,
Mhm.
well, I highly doubt that Bob Iger is
Yeah.
gonna lose. Most people enjoy what Bob Iger has generally done with stuff. So
I hope that's
not
true.
like the
I
last
hope that's
guy,
true.
Bob Paycheck or
Yes.
whatever his name was. Was it
Bob
that
Chapek?
Chapek?
Yeah.
Chapek? Yeah. Oh God, that guy was
Yeah.
awful. So
Awful.
we'll see what happens. Regardless, more Star Wars content is coming out, and let's talk about some really good one. Some really good Star Wars content that's happening right now. Let's go
Yes.
right into the Bad Batch. So the last episode we did episodes 1 through 4. Now we're gonna do episodes 5 through 9 because we're busy
Yes.
people and we can't do a weekly show. We're just too busy. So let's just go get right into it. Let's go into episode 5, the return. Rachel,
Yes.
what is this? What is this all about?
Ah, the further adventures of Omega and Crosshair.
Let me tell you something right now. Um, I think I said in the last episode, I was like, I want just a buddy cop space adventure with just Crosshair and Omega. I don't think we're gonna get that, but the next 5 episodes have just solidified my desire to see that show. I don't give a shit about
Yeah.
Hunter. I don't even care about Wrecker anymore. I don't care about any of these people anymore.
Whoa!
Just give me Crosshair and Omega on their little space adventures. That's all I need.
I mean, to be honest, the show even though there are giving some screen time to other people, like, those people exist to move the plot forward, but the
Yeah,
entire, like, heart and soul of this arc, at least, is
this
all
whole
about Crosshair.
season,
I mean,
this whole season is
yeah,
Crosshair and Omega.
which
That's
is fine with
they're the
me.
two best characters.
Um, mhm. So, okay. Obviously, last time we left off with like the incredible reunion of the remaining Bad Batchers and Omega and Crosshair. And things seemed a little awkward and tense, but now when we pick up, we find out that they are indeed very tense and very awkward. There is no trust between them. The only thing really holding them together is Omega, who was like, "Come on, guys, give
Yeah,
him a chance. Come on."
she's the
And we're like,
sister
"Yes."
trying to get all of her brothers to like be friends and be happy again and love each other.
Why do women always gotta do all the emotional labor, Matthew?
They shouldn't have to. Crosshair and Hunter should just have a good cry. I love you, bro. I love you,
Yeah.
bro, and be done with it. But that's not how men
Oh,
operate.
yeah. I know.
Man
I
box.
know.
It's bullshit.
So, all right, they head back to Pabu, which is like our little like home base for the gang. I suspect it's not going to go well for that planet at some point, but we'll get there when we get there. Like, I
Yep.
just see all these civilians and they're like utopia, and I was like, Man, this thing's gonna be a shell of itself. So
Feel
the
like
whole planet's gonna be like Aunt Beru and
a
Uncle
big
Owen's
laser's
house.
coming Pabu's way or something.
Yeah.
I won't spoil
Yep.
who shows up, but there's an episode called The Harbinger coming up, and a certain individual says you need to get off
Mm.
this planet. Like you need to leave. You're not safe here. I found you.
No.
You're not safe here.
Real easy too.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, like I said, they're back on Pabo and Echo shows up and like so they're like kind of debriefing and talking about what happened on Tantus and the experimentation that's been going on in clones. And of course, Omega is forthcoming. She's like, here's the data pad, but Crosshair is being a little more reserved about it, which I think is actually one of the most important sort of through lines in these is kind of Crosshair's sort of post Tantus PTSD. Um,
That's
and they
one
so
thing I
we
wanted to say real quick. What I think was great about these next episodes is I was under the sad impression like that the tremor that he was having was like, okay, like he's toast. Like, he's got some sort of
yeah,
degenerative thing. Like he's going to die. He's going to have to go out in a blaze of glory or something. But I've changed now to this PTSD thing. I actually think that they're trying to show like, and we'll get there, but it's like all the horrible stuff he's seen, the torture he's been through. That yeah, it's post traumatic stress disorder.
things
He doesn't
he's
realize
done,
it. What's that?
the things he's done.
Yes, the things he's done too. Oh, wouldn't want to forget about that. But yeah, so I actually like that kind of angle that they're sort of going
Mhm.
through. That you're actually seeing a character who, in real life, I know people with PTSD that have that kind of stuff as well. So I'm glad that they're kind of going that route rather than he's just degenerating and dying or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. I actually think it also adds so much weight to the relationship that he has with Omega,
Yeah,
like their shared trauma of what they experienced on Tantus. Like I think this is smart writing. We in order to like we as Crosshair heads have forgiven him for the things that he's done. But I think honestly we can't for the sake of expediency, we can't just like keep moving past it. So I think this is a really important way that it shows like a manifestation of his actual morality that we needed to see in order for it to be like a deeper sort of character and story.
yeah.
So I really appreciate it. But
He's
we're gonna
still
talk a lot
he's
about that.
still fighting it though the whole time. Like he's still fighting it for multiple episodes.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Right. Let it go. Let it go. Let that toxic masculinity go. Vulnerability is strength.
That's
Like
fine.
you got this, Crosshair.
You got it.
So, all right. So they have Nalisae's data pad, but the problem is they're going to need to plug it into an Imperial terminal to access it. Good thing Crosshair knows where one is. Bad news, it is on the outpost on Barton
Oh,
4. Uh yeah, right. I love the setup of this, right? Because like the Bad Batch, none of them know what happened on this planet,
right.
but we as an audience do. And so like there's all these little touches when they get there, these little moments of him like putting the like Mayday's helmet back on the shelf or seeing
Oh
the
yeah, I
ice
love that.
vultures above them. All of those things have this like deep meaningful thing, and it's like seeing him back at this plate at this crossroads on the other side of the decisions and the consequences that he faced for those decisions was like really really powerful, I thought.
Oh yeah, this I wrote that down. I love the moment here of Crosshair picking up the helmets of the troopers and setting them up off the ground. That's one of those things like he never would have done that. We see over the next few episodes Crosshair doing a lot of things he never would have done before. He becomes a gentleman by the end of episode 9, holding hands and bringing ladies up onto the ship. So he is his arc and this episode was the one that starts with he's target practicing, right? And we actually see
Yeah,
like him missing and the tremor and all of that
yeah,
stuff. And I think the droid's like, hey, you have 53% accuracy. Where he's like, that's bad for a sniper. I mean, he still hits over half his shots, I guess. Maybe he should just hold that trigger down or something and spray
right.
fire. But yeah, all these little things that he does throughout the course of it just adds so much more. I love when Wrecker he's like, "Here's your armor. I couldn't throw it
Yes.
out."
Oh,
And
see that
yeah,
I yeah, no, you go ahead.
oh, the other thing I was going to say is right before that when I wrote it down the because Hunter and him are walking past each other, and they like step away. Like Hunter's pissed off at him. Wrecker's kind of over it, and Wrecker at a certain point
Yeah.
says, because Hunter's like, oh, I don't think we should trust him, and Wrecker's like, if Omega trusts him, that's good enough for me, right? He's back to just. I'm accepting, but Hunter won't
Yeah.
accept it. And Omega is like talking to Crosshair when Hunter walks up, and she says something like, I want to go, blah blah blah, and Crosshair's like, "You're just a kid. Like you should not be going here. You're just a kid." And she's like, "I'm older than you, little brother." And then
I
and
love
Crosshair
that.
actually laughs. He actually like, well, for Crosshair to laugh, it's like a chuckle. He's like, "Oh," I'm just like, that is
Yeah.
probably the first time in this entire show we've seen Crosshair show any sort of like, this made me happy. That was a joke and it was funny. It
Mirth.
was good.
Yeah.
Loved it. I
Yeah.
love all this stuff for sure. Yeah.
Right. And it feels earned. That's something
Yes.
we always talk about is like the need for it to feel earned. There are some things later I'm going to say do not feel earned, but that
Oh,
moment
okay.
absolutely did.
Okay.
I also noted the armor because I felt like there's a armor symbolism means a lot in these episodes as well, but there's something about him giving him the old armor that it is proof that no matter how angry they were at him, there was always a part of them that could not give up on Crosshair.
Right.
And then he puts on the armor and it still fits, and that's incredibly symbolic, except for it's like a little uncomfortable,
Yeah.
it doesn't quite feel like him yet. Um but it kind of symbolizes sort of the dynamic that he has with his brothers, where does still, this is where he's meant to be. He does still fit in, but it's an uncomfortable fit because he has changed so much. What he's ultimately going to learn is that he fits better, I think. But I that whole part really stood out to me, and I was like, "Ooh, I love
Yeah.
this. This is good stuff. This is good writing here."
And one thing that I want to point out is, I know, heading back to the Acolyte real quick, I know people were really complaining because it turned, Leslie Headland's like, oh, these are going to be like 30-minute long episodes. They're not going to be like
Mhm.
hour long episodes. And of course, the internet goes up in arms about it. Like, oh my God, 30-minute episodes, blah, blah. But you got to go to stuff like this. These are like
Mhm.
less than 30 minutes, and look at how much.
Unfortunately.
Yeah,
Mhm.
look at how much is packed into stuff like this. Little character moments like that. I mean, yeah, you get your
Mhm.
action sequences and these sorts of things, and they're cool. But all these little things, as long as the Acolyte can do stuff like this, it doesn't matter how long the episodes are. We might want them to be
Right.
longer if they're really good, like, oh, that's great. But as long as they're great storytelling and writing and making characters that have these moments, it's fine, guys. Calm down. Just wait
Yeah.
and watch the show.
Watch it.
Just
We'll
watch
hate it
it.
too if it sucks, but
Exactly.
let's find out.
Yeah,
Let's find out.
for sure.
So yeah, that was really, really great. Okay, so back to Barton 4. It is now completely abandoned. Again, there's some symbolism there. But it, with the exception of sort of these perimeter little noisemakers, and they assume that it is just something that is left over from before. And then, like I said, we get this callback to the things that Crosshair has done, things that he's struggling with in terms of his PTSD. It's interesting because he's sort of like the flip coin of what's going on with Omega, who has like really intense survivor's guilt.
Yeah, because she
I
wants
think
the clones, right? Her whole thing is like, I left the clones behind. We got to go back to
yes,
Tantus and get the rest of the clones.
yes. And I think up until this point, like Crosshair's never had to deal with a conscience because he was a soldier. The things that he did were always justified by, they were either orders or that it was like for this greater good, for this, his allegiance, his loyalty to the, before it was the Empire, it was, what was it? The
The Republic?
Republic. Thank you. I could
Yep.
not think of that word. Um and now for the first time, he's like individuating and having to face the consequences of the decisions that he actually has made. And so watching him on the planet in that moment when he sees those, and he has to like basically confess to Hunter, he's like, "Yeah, I know what happened to those people. How do you think I know what
Yeah,
happened to those people?"
yeah. Because I destroyed them. I
And
killed them all.
Yes.
I murdered
And
them.
so, like, you can see Hunter's reaction to that and his interpretation of it, but because we have all this context, it's, like, actually something much deeper is happening
Yeah.
in that line, and I love that sort of, like, dichotomy between those
And
2
Omega
events.
told him earlier, "Is like you need to just talk to Hunter. Just talk to him."
Mhm.
And they won't. He won't talk to him at all. He literally tells Omega he started it. And I'm just like, this is exactly what a dude would do. Like
Little
he started
brother.
it, that sort of thing. And I'm just like, such great writing, such great writing.
Mhm.
Loved it.
And it's interesting because otherwise, without all of this character stuff, this is a pretty standard episode. We find
Oh
out,
yeah,
of course, those things are not really for those former rebel or, raiders. It's actually for the giant space worm
yeah.
underneath the snow, and
It's
then this epic
tremor,
battle,
giant
and
giant tremor or
yes,
whatever.
the graboid
Graboid.
comes
Yeah,
out,
graboid.
yes. And then, it's those 2, and they have to, like, help each other survive and rebuild the trust, and, like, we do end up in a better place at the end of this.
Yeah.
Um, but it speaks to how important the character stuff is and how well the character stuff is that this otherwise kind of cookie cutter episode really feels important and impactful.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, in a different context, someone would look at like, oh, this would just be a filler episode. This is them going off to a planet and seeing a giant kaiju monster robot thing,
Mhm,
right? And looking for treasure or
mhm.
something like that. But it's like ostensibly in a lot of these episodes. Even the one with Fennec Shan, I'm like, half this episode doesn't really do much of anything. It's
Right.
just there to, you know, I don't even know if it's necessarily to move the plot forward so much as it is. Maybe that could be a filler when we get to it, discussion. But this sort of thing, like there's that moment when because no one trusts, like nobody trusts Crosshair, right? And they're like, "You brought us to this planet. You didn't tell us that all this stuff was going on, and before blah." He walks out, and I love that. My favorite sequence in this entire thing is when he confronts Hunter, and Hunter's like, "The time's over. You tell me what the hell's going on, like right now." And he
Mhm.
literally he blames Hunter because Crosshair, because at this moment I'm like, he loves Omega. Crosshair
Yeah,
loves Omega because he says he blames Hunter for bringing Omega to Tantus when he
yeah.
risked his own life to warn them not to go there, and he throws it in
Mhm,
his face that it was
mhm.
Crosshair who helped her get out. It wasn't Hunter. Hunter was not. He couldn't find her. It was Crosshair that helped her escape. But the fact that he blames Hunter for putting her in that sort of situation in the first place, I think is just, it's like, yeah, he's fallen for his little sister now. It's like, all right, and he's pissed
Yep.
off at Hunter.
Yeah,
Loved
and
it.
he also knows exactly where to get Hunter too, like,
Oh
it's
yeah,
that brotherly dynamic that he's like, "Here is the chink in the armor."
yeah.
Ugh. And you see it, like, hit home for Hunter in a way because that is his insecurity.
Well, Hunter knows he's
Um
right. Hunter can't say
Mhm.
anything about it because
No.
Crosshair's like, she went through all that shit she did because you brought her there. I told you not
Mhm.
to do it, and you brought her here anyway. It's your fault that she went through the trauma that she did, and how that would make
Mhm.
how Hunter would feel. Because Hunter's whole thing is he can, like, I don't know if he's got like a empathy or he can sense things and things. I mean,
Mhm.
so that hits him when he hears that as well, and it's just I love that little sort of
Yeah.
fight right then and there because it
Yeah.
says so
Yeah.
much. It says so much.
Yeah. I agree. And then last, because I always have my tinfoil hat on. I also really appreciated the symbolism of the giant monster underneath the surface, like bursting out the minute that the 2 of them were out on the ice together. I was like, "Oh, I see what you're doing there. I see you."
Yeah. I think it's
So
cool,
yeah,
yeah, 'cause
that is
they fight the graboid, right? They win. The
mhm.
Crosshair sort of helps Hunter, saves Hunter, and a couple other moments here that I thought was really interesting about Crosshair's change in development. He's petting Batcher after all that. When he gets out, he's sitting there. He's actually petting Batcher, which is like that's nothing he would have ever done before. But it's just like it's one of those little character moments. If you're not paying any attention to it, you'll miss it. But it just shows
Right.
like he's starting to care about not just Omega. He's starting to care about other creatures and other people, as we'll see later on in the episodes. So I thought that was really, really great. And I love the moment when they're sort of walking back after they kill the graboid, the Star Wars graboid, and Wrecker runs up to him and hugs them both. He like grabs them and pulls them both in, and
Yeah.
then Echoes is there, and he's like, "See, they always work it out, and there isn't even any blood this time." I thought that was a pretty funny
Yeah.
line. And I love that at the very end,
Yeah.
Crosshair proactively reaches out to Hunter. Like Hunter's walking away, and he's like, "Hunter, I've done some shit. I've done some bad
Yes.
things, man." And then Hunter's like, all we can do is try to be better from it, and it's
Mhm.
kind of like brings him back. So I like this
Yeah.
episode a lot. I think it was a great
No,
sort of
yeah.
epilogue to the Outpost for sure, full circle.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it gives you hope for healing for Crosshair because Hunter is such a mirror in some ways because he everything that Crosshair is ashamed of, Hunter is going to throw back in his face. So to have that kind of like acceptance and forgiveness from him, I think is a big step towards his healing,
Yeah.
which will be great when he dies inevitably in 4 episodes.
Oh, don't say that. Don't say that. See what's gonna happen here is Crosshair is gonna get better, and then he's like, "Oh, this was Dark Jedi type chick. She's pretty cool. Now, Maggie, let's just go
Oh
hang out
man.
with her, and let's just have little adventures in the next animated series. We'll see. We'll get there.
I would watch it. I would watch it.
We'll get there."
Okay. All right, next episode. This is kind of these two kind of smushed together, but
I think they were both.
this next one
They dropped them both simultaneously. I think
that
Infiltration,
makes
episode
sense.
6, and episode 7, Extraction.
Okay, that makes sense because I would imagine it'd be kind of a weird place to leave off in the middle of
Yeah.
these two. But okay, we get some political intrigue. We kick
Hmm.
this off with some political intrigue, and we know I love that. We catch up with our boy Rex, who is guarding Avi Singh, who is the former senator of Raxus, and is meeting with our girl Rio Cucci. Cucci? I
Coochie.
don't think that's her.
I thought it was Chuchi.
Chuchi.
What? I thought she was
Cucci.
Senator
Cucci.
Chuchi. Coochie.
Cucci.
Senator Coochie.
Cucci.
What are you thinking about, Rachel? Senator Coochie? Is that
Listen, do not yuck my yum, sir. I will not be shaved. Senator Chuchi,
Chuchi?
who is, she's meeting with him with because she wants to plan sort of a rebel movement, or perhaps you might call it an alliance.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting, right? Because as he points out, they spent all of this time on opposing sides during the Clone Wars, but this rising tide of fascism, spearheaded by the Empire, has now put them on the same side.
Yeah.
And
This is
I
way
I
before
love all
Andor,
of this.
also. Way before Andor.
I mean, I was getting Mon Mothma vibes like all over the place. Like the way that they sort of present as like he's still, her Chuchi in particular presents as someone who is still kind of maybe like she has some troubling ideas, but is largely on the side of the Empire, but is like quietly fomenting rebellion on the other side is
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Well,
makes me love her.
what's cool about this initial thing is they literally state, because this is very, very early, right? Episode or Order 66 just happened. I don't know how many years, maybe 3 years before. I don't know how many years are going past in the Bad Batch seasons, but it's very recent.
Yeah.
And she mentions like the Emperor is worried that planets will unite and try to overthrow him. And I made a comment here. Like, remember, this isn't the original trilogy Empire. This is still super early in the Empire's formation. And if those planets had said "fuck this," Emperor
Mhm.
Palpatine would not have been able to do it. He basically cracked down on all these and manipulated everything, the military and the planets to try to keep them away from each other so that he could build up his resources to be able to just drop down where we see in Andor later on down the road. So it is cool that
Mhm.
they're showing like right at the very beginning of this, people are already like, this ain't right. We need to be doing some stuff.
Mhm.
And is Skarsgård in why am I blanking on his name in Andor? Luthen? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Luthen?
Rayo Luthen?
Luthen
Yeah.
Rail? Luthen Rail, I think. See,
Yeah.
I can't remember all the names. I apologize, people.
I
There's
know,
just
me
too many
neither.
names. Um,
Me neither.
he in that great speech he gives, that monologue, he's like, this started 15 years ago. Like I woke up 15 years ago. So he's running around in the world right now, like fomenting revolution or trying to get the machinery going. So I'm just picturing like he's probably hanging out with Chuchi or Senator Coochie at some point, just saying, "Hey, yeah, we should do something here." Like minds. I don't know. So That's my headcanon.
Oh, I mean, who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him show up. We've seen plenty of other characters show up, like that we would know from
Yeah.
live action have popped into
I don't
these. So
know
that
how,
would
like
be
I don't know how close
proof we have
Gilroy
enough
holds
time.
holds those characters. I don't know. So Gilroy might be
Right.
like, "You do those stuff with those characters after I'm done with my shit. Like, don't do anything that might impact what
Fair.
I'm working on here." But we'll see.
Fair. That is fair. So, the meeting's going great until it gets interrupted, of course, by an assassin. Rex ain't having it. He manages to foil the assassination attempt, and they even manage to capture the assassin, R.I.P. Greer. But, and it's revealed to be one of these brainwashed clones.
I'm a
So
believer. That was from the
I
last
love
season, right? Yeah.
yeah, and I actually love all of this stuff, especially as we find out more about,
I have a theory about
Crosshair's experience
these.
with them.
I have a theory about
Ooh.
these. We'll get there.
What is your theory?
Well,
Oh,
we'll wait
okay.
till we
All
get to
right.
the
Don't
episode
forget.
where Crosshair's like, "We gotta get the fuck out of here," you know. That he has that
Yeah.
interaction with Crosshair when he sees Crosshair. He's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, hi, brother," sort of thing. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Hemlock's got
Oh,
that genetic
interesting.
shit. They're all snipers. They all don't follow orders. They all have that like square or backpack on when they're doing shit. They're all tall and skinny. I don't necessarily think they're exact clones of Crosshair, but I think maybe some of Crosshair's like awesome, super awesome DNA is in them somehow. Maybe. And
Is that what's
Crosshair's
happening
not
with his
telling
head?
him.
They're, like, scooping out samples to make new
Maybe
clones?
because Crosshair, even Hunter at one point is like, Crosshair, there's something you're not telling us. Like, what happened? And even the
Right.
robot, when the robot when he's looking at his hand, is like, well, if you would just tell me like what the experiments were that they were doing, maybe I could help you with this tremor. And Crosshair's like, nope, I'm fine. And goes, so I think Crosshair's got some stuff he's still not saying about what went down. He knows an awful lot about all these
Mhm.
guys.
He sure does. Okay, alright, I'm in, I'm fully like, sign me up, give me the triangle with the eye in it, I'm fully, I'm in on this conspiracy.
Could be.
Yes, yes, okay, so they press this captive on Tantus, who's, like at first, he, like, finally reacts when they say Tantus, and they also find that he has, like, one of those sort of pucks that we saw, like, a lot of in The Mandalorian that has not only Senator Chuchi on it, but also Omega. So they realize that she is on the most wanted list. And of course, they call the Bad Batch, who was just like, well, let me Uber on down there. Which,
Yep.
come on, y'all are on Pabu. Chill. It's
Yes.
fine. It could have been a space zoom. Could have been a space zoom, but
Uh-huh.
whatever.
Yep. That's not
That
exciting though.
we need to move. Yeah, we need to move the plot forward. So of course they all head off and they meet at sort of this outpost. I think it's on like Teth, I think it's called, something like that. Um, and there's of course they bring the galaxy's least popular clone with them. So of course there is tension immediately as soon as
Everybody
Crosshair gets
hates.
off.
Man, Hauser's like,
Everybody hates.
Crosshair, you basically murdered my entire regiment of clones. And Crosshair's like, what of it?
Yeah.
It's like,
I
sorry,
mean,
sorry, man.
he can't go anywhere without being like, "Well, well, well, if it isn't the
he
consequences of my behavior."
I did not realize how known Crosshair is to literally everybody. Because it's just like, man, he must have built a reputation in such a short amount of time that people were like, this guy, he's a clone that's going around murdering all of us, sort of thing. Like he's the Michael Myers of the clone force or whatever. But yeah, nobody likes him
Yeah.
except
No, I
Omega.
I didn't have time to do, like, the full deep dive, but I think it's from an episode from the 1st season, and apparently, like, Hauser and him have, like, a moment where they, like, stare at each other.
Oh
So
yeah.
this is sort of the I had forgotten about this
It was on
completely.
Ryloth,
Um,
right? Because Hauser
yes.
comes up in this one. He's like, "Look, I lost pretty much everybody because of you. We have unfinished
Yeah.
business." And Crosshair is just like chewing on his toothpick, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Bring it, bro."
How do I need to, like, somehow get some of his zero fuckitis. I need that in my life. He does not. I mean, although maybe he really does. Actually, what we're learning is he's very good at pretending, but I
Yes,
think he actually does give all the fucks.
strong,
Um,
toxic masculine exterior.
absolutely. So, okay. So when they get there, they have this tension. They talk about the unfinished business from Ryloth, and then it, like, gets even worse because they realize Omega is on the list, but he is not, which makes them think that he's definitely a traitor, so
Yeah.
that's not great.
Yeah.
But they also but she of course, Omega's in there doing that emotional labor, smoothing stuff over with all of her brothers and cousins,
Don't
and,
forget that Echo gives her that cool new weapon. She's got a
oh, that's
crossbow,
right!
energy crossbow now, and she's like, "Thanks, Echo." It's he's like,
It's such
I
a
would have
ro
bumped it up a little bit more, but I didn't have time. Like, go take care of those
Aw,
guys. Keep them up. Just I love the relationship that they have, like the little sister sort of relation, even though she's technically the
yeah.
big sister. It's just so great.
And it's such a callback to, like, the Omega of old. As I was watching this, I was like, "Treasure Omega is gone." Like, we're never gonna see Treasure Omega again. She's
Yeah.
grown up, she's been through some things. So it was kinda sweet to see that moment of like, "Oh, do you remember back when we first met Omega and she got her first little weapon and she was just,
Yep. And this,
the little, the plucky little kid that was
yeah.
kind of helping out."
And this is like the cool thing about all people, and again I harken back to these toxic idiots YouTube talking about female characters in Star Wars. Omega's a fucking awesome character. She's an awesome
Mhm,
character, and again with all these characters that Filoni creates as young sort of kids, sort of growing up and maturing in this world that they must, right? You kind of are forced to, when you're having
mhm.
to go into battle constantly with all these people and
Yeah,
survive. But it just shows it's like the growth that these characters have, and it shows an arc. It shows awesome, and we'll find out possibly some things about Omega coming up here that you're like, what has Omega been doing the past 30 or so years? And will we see her again? We'll see. I won't spoil
that's
nothing.
interesting.
Won't spoil
That's
nothing.
interesting. So, okay. So we get some exchange of some information here. Omega talks about like the M count of it all, and that's why he's not on there, but she's on there. Crosshair also opens up a little bit about because he knows about the clone assassins. Like you said, we get some
Yeah.
hints about the clone assassins and
You've got
his
one
knowledge
here.
about it. Yes.
Like Rex is like, we got one. Like we caught one. Look how awesome we are. We caught one of these crazy assassins.
Yeah.
Crosshair's like, you stupid idiot.
Idiots. Yes. Of course there's trackers in this. They're
Yeah.
like state property. Of
Well,
course
I love it.
there
He's like,
is.
Hemlock is not that stupid. He literally
Yeah.
says that like Hemlock is not that stupid that he would just let one of these guys go out. Ugh,
No.
love it.
Yep. Yep. And so he's like, they're gonna track him. And then of course, in that moment, once again, Crosshair proven correct because
Yep.
we have another assassin that has shown up to take out the first one because obviously he knows too much. Um and there's like we get our like end of episode sort of battle that results in the base getting blown up.
Yeah.
But we
And this,
also see sorry.
oh, I was gonna say this is the episode where when Crosshair walks in and sees the captured one, when the guy looks up and he's like, "Oh, hi,
Yes.
brother. You should ask him what's going on." And everyone's like looking at Crosshair. It's like, "What do you mean?" Crosshair's like, "We got to get the fuck out of here now. Like, we've got to go now." And I love that. So that's where I think that there's something more here, and this will bleed into the next episode because it's essentially one giant episode they just chopped in half. It
Yeah.
essentially ends like the episode 7 extraction is just them escaping and the assassin, hunting them down. But I love this
Mhm.
moment, just the way that that clone looks up at him and is like, "I am you and you are me," sort of thing. Even that thing when they sort of they kind of hurt the assassin here. I don't remember what the assassin's name is, but when they're flying out and he pulls out the scope and he's like, do 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 do, and I mean that's a Crosshair shot. That is a shot Crosshair would make.
Yeah.
And I love the moment when
Mhm.
when they're walking through, and this could be bleeding into part 7, so forgive me if I am, but I love when they're trying to escape through, and Crosshair has that like, "You got your bow ready, energy bow," and Maggie's like, "Yes." Like, "You got paying attention to this." She's like, "You're just like Hunter," and he's like, "I'm much much worse." And then the assassin comes down and Crosshair's like, "You guys go, I'll take care of this." And they kind of have that mini
Mhm.
sniper battle, but he can't hit anything because he
Mhm.
keeps missing, and he's like,
Mhm.
"God damn it!" But he just puts a fucking like grenade on the end of his thing. He's like, "I'll just blow him
Yes!
up." Awesome,
Yes!
so good, so
Yes!
good. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Me too. And I think I want to talk about the uniform of the assassins in a minute, but like
Okay.
I do think that it's good to see that he is still, while he's not totally reliant on his actual skill, like there's the other parts of being an assassin that he like talked to her about that are still functioning just fine.
Yeah.
And he uses those to his advantage. The other thing really quickly at the end of this episode before we go into the next one
Sure.
is that we get the an arrival of another sort of beloved character who we have not seen, I don't think, since Clone Wars, which is of
Oh
course
yeah.
Wolf shows
Wolf.
up, and he is,
Yeah.
yes, who we see, when do we see him? We see in Rebels. He shows up again in
I
Rebels,
think so.
right?
Yeah.
He's like
Yeah.
he's one of the elders that they meet on the like little sand walker,
I think so
like,
because it's Rex, Wolf,
mhm,
and there's one other guy that retires there with them essentially, but I
yeah,
can't remember the
but I'm
other
pretty
clones.
sure,
But yeah, that's
which is
cool.
gonna be important later, but
Because when Wolf interacts with this clone assassin, he's like,
yes,
"Who are you?" And he's like, "That's classified." He's like, "Well, I'm in charge right now, and you got to do what I say." And this clone does his own thing. He's very like we're bad at following orders, sort of thing. Like we do
yeah,
our own
yeah,
shit. So yeah, there's something there. There's something going on with these
yeah,
clones and Crosshair. I think
that's
Crosshair is the
interesting.
model for all of these super assassin clones.
I'm convinced, but I had a very different interpretation, but I you
Okay.
have you have like red pilled me on this. My thought was just like this guy has like no respect for the chain of command, and like it was more about, I think, like commentary on like these sort of like, you know, I don't know what they're called, but like something like outside the CIA, sort of, like you're
Okay.
outside the
Black
you know what
ops
I mean? Like
sort of
out,
stuff.
yeah, like Black Ops. That's exactly what, yes. I thought it was more of a Black Ops situation, but I actually think you're right. There might be some like some sort of like nature nurture thing happening
Yeah,
due to their DNA.
because
Yeah.
at least the guys they captured does not. Well, I guess they're all clones, so they all kind of would look the same. But he doesn't look like
Right.
Crosshair. You don't read him as they don't like. Oh, Crosshair, that's you. Why do you guys look exactly the same? So they don't look exactly the
Mhm.
same, but I think everybody in the Bad Batch, they have that special unique genetic stuff, right? And I think Hemlock
Mhm.
was torturing the shit out of because at some point, I don't know which episode it is, but maybe it's in the next one, episode 7 or something, but at a certain point Crosshair sort of goes like, hey, he explains a little bit. He's like, they tried to recruit me
Mhm.
to do this thing and I wouldn't. Seems I'm defective. There's something about me that's defective. I couldn't just because he tells him,
Yeah.
he's like, these clones are willing to help the empire. They go into this thing that Hemlock does and they come out completely different. They're like conditioned true believers, so to speak. And it's whatever was happening. He
Mhm.
says they tried to do that to him, but they couldn't. So maybe Hemlock took something from him, put it in these things, and now they're all awesome snipers. I don't know. That's my theory. That's my theory.
I mean, he did, yeah, I as you're saying that, like, that entire firefight, some of it I think I had chalked up to his, diminished capabilities, but I do think the things he was doing were very Crosshair-esque.
Oh yeah,
So yeah. So Wolf is there, and he tries to order the assassin around, and the assassin's like, "Okay, bro." What's interesting, he doesn't, like, fight with him, he doesn't try to pull rank, but there's, like, this, juxtaposition of again, around their two sort of responses where like Wolf is still like a tried and true soldier. Like he still believes in the chain of
yeah,
command. He still behave like he looks around and sees the devastation of all these dead clones from the explosion that happened. His priority is keeping with the mission. Like we're supposed to bring in Omega alive.
yeah,
And then this other guy completely ignores orders, doesn't even like try to give him a justification of like, I didn't do this. They blew this shit up, right?
yeah. And he
He's
was
just
telling he's
silent, he
because
doesn't
Wolf is
argue.
yeah, because Wolf's like these are all clones. These aren't like rebels, whatever. And then it's the
Yeah.
assassin who's like, actually, they were all in on it, right? And
Mhm,
so Wolf is already, but you're right, and we find this out at the end of the next episode as well, where he's fully Empire. He's like, my job is to enforce the will of the Empire. I'm a soldier for the Empire, and this is what I do. But he
mhm.
has no clue as to what's actually going on. Like he has no idea. He just knows they're this rogue, classified assassin running around fucking up his shit. He's like, I got to get back with Omega intact, and you, sir, are blowing their ship out of the sky. How do you know they're not dead? You're blowing up this entire building. Like, how do we know they're not?
Yeah,
No, trust me, she's alive. She's alive. She's alive. So
right,
yeah, he's
right.
back. He's back.
Mhm. So as you said, they're like the assassin is on the trail of them. We have the great interaction with Omega and Crosshair, and eventually he does catch up with them, and it leads to honestly a really awesome fight with the. There's the long distance thing, and then they're like, okay, no, hand to hand combat time.
Yeah.
Like I obviously can't beat him at the sniper game, and it's like so epic. It's in front of this huge waterfall.
Yeah.
It's and they are like very, very well matched to the point where Crosshair may not come out of this. And so it's interesting because the other thing that happened in that Omega moment that we didn't touch on is that Hauser was watching and he saw
Mm,
them interact.
yep.
And that he was like, oh, he sees how Crosshair genuinely cares and is protective of Omega, and that is kind of the thing that sort of makes him realize maybe he has changed and he is still one of their brothers. So he ends up saving Crosshair, which,
Yeah.
I don't know that Crosshair would have come out of this if it had not been for that moment of Hauser kind of like turning on him. And this
Yeah.
is where I'm kind of like, I don't know if this one was earned.
Well,
Like
before we get to the Hauser thing, because I kind of agree with you there. He mentions like they have that little conversation. He's like, "I saw you with the girl. Like, what changed?" And Crosshair says, "Loyalty meant something to me. With the Empire, it didn't go both ways. I realized how disposable I was." And I
Mhm.
think to your point is like, I don't think Hauser saving this guy was for Aaron because they don't have a whole lot of screen time with one another to suddenly be like boom. But I think that was the moment in this episode where they try to
Mhm.
leap us to that, where it's like, look, I realized that the Empire was just using us, sort of thing. Because there's that whole thing about the clones, right? They're all bonded together. They're all clones. They
Yeah.
see each
Mhm.
other as, they're all brothers essentially. They're all family members with one another. And I agree with you. Hauser showing up and saving Crosshair from going off the waterfall probably wasn't earned in the sense that we didn't get like a full episode with him and Crosshair kind of like doing that thing.
Yeah.
That moment where Crosshair turns and explains, I think that was the bridge they were trying to get to there.
Yeah,
But I
I
agree with you.
totally agree with you. I just think that here's the problem is that the show is usually so, so good
Yeah.
about and this is a moment where because we're in the final season, I felt the expediency in a way that I don't normally feel in a
Yep.
show. So it's not like it ruined it for me. I just like as we're talking about this through a critical lens, that was one of the few moments where I was like,
No, I agree
I
with
don't
you. I agree with you 100%.
know.
Yeah, you will get no opposite opinion from me. But
Yeah, I
I
don't
d
want no guff from you, Matthew. Don't
well,
give me no guff.
I also think it's cool is like when Crosshair's fighting the assassin. Like I said, I love the one-on-one sniper battle, and I love that he's
Yeah.
protecting Omega through that whole thing. He's like, "You stay close to me, keep your head down, do all this stuff, then you go." And Omega's like, "I don't like this plan." He's like, "Too bad." It just goes off and does his own thing. I love that. And I love the one-on-one sniper battle. But again, he can't. He's still good enough that he spots him and stuff. He just can't hit him. But they when they do that
Mhm.
one-on-one, the clone, the assassin clone, literally says, "You had your chance to be one of us. You chose the wrong side."
Yeah.
And so I think it's really interesting how all of these clones view him as well. So not only does he's not trusted by the clones that you know should trust him now, but also the bad clones don't like him either. It's like he's getting nothing
Yeah.
from anybody other than Omega and maybe Hunter, maybe Hunter. Wrecker's just Wrecker, but Omega is essentially is the only person in his life that actually believes in him fully.
Yeah.
1000% and
They
is
will not give
showing
up
it
on him.
and is showing she even
Mhm.
mentions that in a later episode where he's like, "You're being naive," and she's like, "I didn't give up on you, did I?" And they just have that moment of Crosshair realizing, God damn it, she's right.
Mhm.
She's right. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think, and they never show the helmet off of this assassin clone. The assassin
Mm.
survives, right? So the
Mhm.
assassin goes over the waterfall, gets up, and it's like, I'm thinking like this is going to be revealed to be a clone of Crosshair or something. down the
Oh,
line.
I like that better than the other theory I saw that it was gonna be Tech. I was like, "It fucking better not be.
Oh, I would have no, cannot be Tech. Tech doesn't have
Cannot be Tech."
fighting skills like that. Tech's way shorter
Yeah.
than Crosshair too, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. I like your
Can't be
theory
Tech.
much better that we're gonna see it actually resembles him. But yeah, I loved this whole scene because I do think this is the where you really see exactly how much Crosshair's hand is affecting him. There was like a time where
Yeah.
that dude would not have stood a chance. And I was thinking about like all of sort of the amazing things that we've seen him do. And the thing I sort like kind of like focused on and then I realized was interesting, a parallel to this was that amazing chase scene where he's again sort of in an elevator shaft and using mirrors
Oh
and like doing
yeah.
all that crazy stuff. And
Yeah.
then the other sort of thing that was there were those like they're like the BX series commando droids that are like the really weird acrobatic ones. And I was thinking about that design and how much it actually looks quite a bit like how these assassin droids armor looks.
Oh yeah.
And like, the design choice felt intentional to me in a way, and, like, again, I'm a foil hat girl, but it evokes this time that Crosshair was, like, an unstoppable force, and so you're seeing, like, the comparison of these 2 things, and I also think it kind of mirrors the way that these brainwashed clones are less human than their counterparts and more mindless killing machines, much more in keeping with those commando droids. So it feels like an echo to me, like a
Yeah.
visual echo.
And I'm wondering if they'll show and they'll explain exactly what happened with how these sort of like super secret black ops things were actually created, if they'll show it, because Crosshair mentions, he's like, there are clones who are willingly going to do this for the Empire, like they believe in the
Yeah.
Empire, they don't believe in this. Is Hemlock selecting those that are like pro Empire and then just programming them with skills from Crosshair, or is it, are they literally like, I don't want to do this, but then they're brainwashed? And because the assassin in the last episode, he's like, why was I activated? He tells that clone, he's like, he literally, when he's a hologram, whatever, he's like, why was I activated? It's almost like he's in stasis or something until they turn
Mhm.
him on. Like, I don't know. I hope we
Like
learn a
a
little bit.
droid?
Yeah, yeah. I hope we learn a little bit more about that, what happened in the
I
past there.
mean, there's so many sort of anti-fascist messages in the like, just on its surface, like, they're not even trying to hide them in these shows these days. The Filoni era is the Antifa era, and I'm here for it. Um, and it does kind of feel like a little bit of a message when they talk about using these willing clones, like, that there is no loyalty, there is no benefit to siding with fascism. You are not by
Yeah.
cozying up to this, you are not powerful by proxy. You are a tool, you are a pawn. The, and I think that that message is coming through pretty clearly through these assassin droids. And so I salute you, Filoni. I salute you. Welcome to the revolution. Um,
Yeah, that's
so
that's pretty much it
last
for that episode. Yeah.
no, no. There's
No.
one other
Oh
important
yeah.
beat.
Never. Yeah, you're right. I forgot all about it. Yep.
Actually, 2 important beats,
The
2
end.
important beats.
The
First
very
of
end.
all, when they're waiting for their extraction, they are intercepted by Wolf and
Yep.
his, like, his platoon. I
Yep.
don't know if that's the right word.
Squad. Yeah.
And it's, like, the first time like, when he gets off, Rex recognizes him because he has his, like, wolf clone helmet, and, he pulls his head off, and it's like they pull off their helmets, which, like, takes them from being sort of, like, faceless clones to individuated people.
Yeah.
And they have this moment where they're like reunited. They both thought the other one had died. It's like this beautiful sort of brotherhood moment, but they're across this divide. And I love the way that this entire scene is not shot, but like constructed, where there's the 2 ships, and then there's the space between them, and like that is the divide. And there's
Yeah.
obviously physical divide, but there's like a metaphorical divide between the 2 of them, like, and you need to pick which side of the screen you wanna be on. And I love this whole, like, back and forth about, like, the Empire, like, he's trying to impress upon him, like, the Empire is you are disposable to the Empire, and the other one's kind of struggling with that still. I am a soldier, I take
Yeah.
orders,
Wolf's like,
and
You're a
no.
traitor. If you don't get on this ship with me right now, you're a traitor and we're going to have to shoot you down like right here and there, because
Mhm.
that's where he's coming from. And
Right.
and Rex is like, your orders are to hunt down a little girl. Think about that.
Yeah.
Think about
Yeah.
what you're doing right now, brother to brother. That's wrong. And the Empire's, by the way, got all of our brothers experimenting on them on Tantus or whatever. But yeah, it's a great moment between them where they're kind of, and even Wolf's troopers, right? They're just like,
Yeah.
you're letting him go. This is
Yeah.
like treason. You're just
Yeah.
letting this guy go, and he's like, look, he earned it. He deserves it, and he literally says,
Yeah.
go pick up their dead. It's not like we're
Yeah.
leaving all these clones. He's like, we're going to retrieve all of his men that died as well, and give them proper burials and that kind of stuff. So it's a cool sequence.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah. And it underscores that, like, whether even the ones who are, like, supposedly loyal to the Empire still, there is a conflict.
Yeah,
There's an internal conflict because, like, I think, you don't just snap out of it, although kind of Crosshair did. I think well, no, he didn't. There was a process. There's a process of
and
sort
I'm
of de-radicalizing
and I'm
and
curious where
getting yeah.
what's I don't remember. Does Wolf still have his inhibitor chip? Because I think one of the things is, like, a lot of this, the clones didn't want to do stuff, but they had those chips still in their head that activated under Order
He
66, where
must not have.
they couldn't say no. The vast majority of them. I mean, we see was it's Rex, right? I always get Rex and
Mhm.
Cody mixed up.
Yeah,
Um,
we don't know where Cody is.
yeah,
Cody's off doing his thing.
season 7 of the Clone Wars, it was Rex, right? And he refuses to kill Ahsoka, right? Or
Mhm.
he stands in front because and if I'm
Right.
trying, I apologize, I'm
I'm
getting
pretty
all
sure
this stuff.
Cody, because I think we
Is
see
it Cody
Cody
or
turn
Rex?
on her. I think Rex is the one that protects her and Cody is the one that
Right.
turns on her.
So I have to go back and rewatch them because my head,
What
my
a hardship.
memories fly out of my brain constantly. But anyway,
There's
my
a
main
lot of there's a
yeah,
lot to remember,
yeah,
Matthew.
my main point here is that the inhibitor chip is supposed to prevent all this and just blind
Mhm.
loyalty. And a lot of these times, if the inhibitor chips are damaged or gone, whatever, that's when
Yeah,
they can kind of do their own thing. And the Bad Batch had
yeah,
inhibitor chips in their head. It just didn't work because they were
right,
different, right? They were defective,
right.
and so it didn't
Yeah.
take on them.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume he'd probably still have it because why would he have it removed? You know what I mean? Like
And that's my thing. It's like, well, then
yeah.
why would the chip allow him to let them go in that situation?
Well, I wonder if that was really about more about the Jedi as opposed to one another.
Maybe I'll have to research it
Mm,
and sort of see
yeah,
his backstory because I hadn't seen
I'm
him in a long
sure
time anyway.
someone
Yeah, it's
knows.
probably in a
Someone
book
knows.
somewhere. It's probably in a book. Oh yeah, he did
Yeah.
get his inhibitor chick taken out. Okay, just something that
Yes.
popped into my mind.
And then the very last thing is something that Rex tells Hunter, and that's you need to find out why the Empire wants her, or you're not going to be able
Yeah.
to protect her.
What's this M
Which
count?
leads us in.
What's this
Yeah, what
M
is this
count?
M count?
Everyone's talking about M count. M count.
Every time they talk about the M count, all I see is just Dave Filoni pushing the biggest fucking broom. Just like, here I go.
He's
Here I
trying.
go.
He's trying. I see
All right.
the thing about Dave Filoni is he will push the broom, but he will always be loyal to what George Lucas wanted.
Yes.
George Lucas, for better or worse, he came up with the midichlorian thing. That's a thing.
Yeah.
I cannot see Dave Filoni saying, actually, George, you don't own this anymore. I'm going to retcon all of your
No.
shit. He's going to be loyal to whatever George wanted. He's just going to try to massage it in the best way and maybe add some elements to it that allows us to be like, maybe it is a more spiritual sort of thing than
Yeah.
a scientific thing.
Yeah.
He's
I mean,
trying.
I don't know if it's just exposure. I'm like, it's fine. Midichlorians, it's cool. Like,
I don't
whatever.
honestly. I didn't even have a huge deal of it when it first came out.
Yeah.
Personally, I mean, I'm not like I like the idea, kind of just in general, that it's just this weird sort of spiritual sort of force type
It
thing that we
felt
don't really know about
over
it.
explainy. Like, I was like, I don't
Yeah,
need to know that.
yeah, I didn't need to
Yeah.
know it, but then I'm just like, I don't really care.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
what it is. It's fine either way. I don't have a
Yeah.
big problem with it, but I understand a lot of people do, and we don't want to make them upset because
Yeah.
Episode 8, Bad Territory. This is probably the weakest one, I think, but not for
Yeah.
the crosshair stuff, but for everything else.
This
You can
is
sum up the
yeah, the more
Fennec shit
filler.
real quick here in like 20 seconds, probably.
Yeah. Well, it starts off with our girl Fee returning, even if it's on Space Zoom. It's good to see Fee.
She didn't even
She has
mention
been
Tech. Were
I
they like
know.
boyfriend
Let
and
her
girlfriend
we
kind of
all
thing
grieve
there?
on our own way. We
Mm,
all grieve in our own ways. And
okay.
for hers, it's plundering space information. I don't know.
Liberator of ancient
Um,
wonders.
correct. That was cute. I love that. See, everything Omega and Crosshair does is
Well, I love
freaking
Crosshair.
adorable.
He doesn't know who any of these people are. He's like, who? Who's this? Who? What? Where? Like, who are all of these people? I love it. You missed a lot,
So
Crosshair.
yes, I know. He's like, "You've been a Kashyyyk?
Yep.
What?"
Yeah.
Um, so, all right, they have been using Fee to try to like find out what is going on with this whole M count Mishigas, and she basically she has a little bit of information, and it's essentially that the bounty hunters have been like getting special bounties, specifically trying to find people with this like M count thing. And so they're like, well, I guess we're gonna have to track down a bounty hunter to get some information. At which point, I'm getting very excited because I am a big Finnick Shan fan and I'm also a big Cad Bane fan. And I was like, it's going to be one of them. I guarantee it. And guess what? Turns out, yep, Hunter and Wrecker like finally finally are able to get Omega to stay behind
Yeah.
for an episode, which is fine. And they head off to meet up with Finnick Shan, who is off being a badass as she normally is. And they, like you said, we can probably sum this up pretty quickly. She agrees to help them with the information if they help her track down one of their like a bounty that she's finding to be very slippery. They go with
Hunting
her to
down a
this
praying
spot.
mantis, essentially.
Yeah, I was
Hiding
not
in the
expecting that.
bayou.
I was like,
Praying mantis in the bayou.
how are you creepier than a Geonosian? But you are. But anyways, so they head to the bayou. They deal with space crocs. They deal with underwater landmines. And eventually they succeed in doing it. Does all this stuff is kind of fillery, but this is the treasure episode of the season.
This is the one
Um,
where it's like none of this really matters at all. It's
not
just there
really.
to like get. It's an excuse to get Hunter and Wrecker away from Crosshair and Omega, so that they can have their
Yeah.
character moments.
Exactly. And then just to wrap up her plot point, should they help her? And then she's like, yeah, I don't actually have the information, but I'll get it for you. But you're
Yeah.
going to have to trust me. And then goes off and makes a very sinister phone call, which I was like, come on, come on. We don't see who it is yet, but she is reached out to someone that presumably is either going to come for them or has the information. More importantly, we have some bonding moments back on Pabu between Crosshair and Omega. Um, she's the one person that can like talk him into like seeing a doctor again, emotional labor,
Okay.
Omega.
I'm going to tell you my big problem with this episode. Huge problem that I have with this
Okay.
episode. So at the very beginning of it, Hunter notices the tremor, and he tells Omega, "Hey, can you talk to him and see if you'll go see the doctor because it ain't going to get any better." Now, maybe this is I'm naive when I think of these types of shows in this way, but I do think of these shows kind of for kids, right? Um, I'm a kid at heart, right? So
Mhm.
I love it, but I look at these sort of things like ostensibly if I'm like 10, 11 years old and I'm watching this, right? And then Dave Filoni weaves all these different sorts of like moments in your life as you're sort of learning things, and maybe somewhere in some sort of subconscious it helps a kid sort of whether understand or relate to something that maybe they didn't know or couldn't understand before. And I thought there was a huge missed opportunity here because Crosshair, I wanted to see the scene where Omega convinces him to see the doctor. They don't do that
Mm.
because he's
Mhm.
just immediately
Mhm.
at the doctor. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, if I was like a 10-year-old kid, and let's say my parent or something was you could kids know when there's something wrong, a lot of times medically or whatever, but sometimes there's guys specifically who just like, nope, not going to the doctor. I'm just dealing with it. And you sort of look at these people and you're like, I don't even know how to approach the subject to tell my person you got to go to the doctor, sort of thing. And I thought it could have been a
Right.
really cool, like little teachable moment if they would have shown a scene of Omega
Mm.
interacting with Crosshair in a way in which convinced him to see the doctor. So how do you explain to like a young child of a way in which you can communicate with an adult and convince them to do something they don't really want to do, and how that conversation would go, and how you'd be able to sort of
Mm,
explain that to someone who's scared to go to the doctor. Because you look at this, I'm sure Crosshair is terrified. He's got a tremor in his hand. He has no idea what the fuck's happening to him.
mhm,
And how do you engage with somebody in that kind of situation? I would have loved to have seen that, and I think that was a missed
yeah,
opportunity here, personally.
yeah. I mean, poor parentified child has to get their family to go to the doctor.
Hey, sometimes it
I mean,
happens.
yeah, no, I mean, it's not that it's not valuable,
I
but
had a
it just makes
parent
me
who
sad.
just refused to go to doctors and stuff when I was growing up and stuff, and it's hard. It's
Yeah,
like, how do you have that conversation that it's important? You're just 10, you're 11. I mean, how do you have that
yeah,
conversation? I would have liked to have seen that represented rather than him, because it seems out of character for Crosshair. Okay, check it, doctor, when he was
like
so against it prior.
I know, but, like, when does he ever say no to Omega anymore?
Well,
It's
that's true.
ridiculous.
That's true. That's true.
But on the other side, I do think that this is sort of they seeded in the trauma stuff in that first episode. This is where we really kind of see it coming,
Yeah.
like, more to the forefront, and I do think it's really beautiful to see them bonding and healing through their trauma together, and the way that, like, the incredibly like, you talk about, like, things that are positive for kids to see, the healthy response to needing to heal trauma, to open up about it, to talk
Yeah.
about it, do peaceful healing, self-healing things. I think those are actually really powerful messages that,
Yeah.
like, she's has him meditating, those kinds of it is an antithesis to what is kind of like a violent-y action show, which we love, but these quieter like moments about, like, peace and personal growth and forgiveness
Yeah.
and all of those kinds of stuff I think are really beautifully done.
It's
And
the
I love
antithesis
that
of the man
even
box. It is. Have you even
yes.
heard of that?
Yep.
That the man box. The man box is an actual
No, but
thing.
I it's
I'll s
tell me. Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
gonna
I
well, I'm gonna send you a
sounds
video. I'll
correct.
send you a video. It's basically how growing up, how sort of men are put in a box where it's like you can't show
Yeah,
emotions. You
yeah.
have to sort of value yourself by the amount of partners you can sleep with, and all of this, just sort of like
Mhm,
this box that are put around men culturally that they grow up in and they don't feel like they can get out of. I'll send you a video. There's a
mhm,
really cool video of a guy when I was doing work with victims of violent crimes, and we had to watch this thing
mhm.
about the man box and how difficult it is for men to sort of get out of it. It's a really cool watch. But this
Yeah,
reminds
send
me,
it to me.
it reminds me of this because Crosshair, like when the doctor is like, "There's nothing more I could do. Your hand's fine," essentially, and the
Yeah.
doctor's like, "Well, it could be in your head." He's like, "Fuck that! It's not in my head. There's nothing wrong with my brain. I'm fine." That's the man box going sort of thing. It's like it's not internal. I can handle
Mhm.
anything. I'm strong enough to handle anything. It's not my brain. There's something wrong. I don't know what it is, but it's definitely not my mind. Because if my mind is broken, then I can't trust anything I'm feeling at that point
Right.
anymore. And how am I supposed to how am I supposed to project strength when my mind is broken and somebody
Yeah.
tells me my mind is broken? Then I'm weak, and they really showed that here where he just gets up, he's like spa, and he goes off. And
Yeah.
when he's sitting by himself and Omega comes over, and Omega is just like, hey, I got something we can try. You're not gonna like it. And he goes, well, I'm not gonna like it, am I? And she goes, you don't like anything. And he goes, true.
Anything.
True. Which is great. It's great, but
Yeah.
the probably I would argue my favorite moment of this season so far is just Omega and him sitting on that rock, and he's sitting. He's like, "What are we supposed to be doing here?" Like, he's frustrated. He's impatient. He's like, "What is this? This is dumb." And she's like, just we got another Ganji name drop. I learned this from my friend Ganji on Kashyyyk. That's when he's like, "You went to
Yes.
Kashyyyk?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, you missed a lot, Crosshair. You missed a lot." And he has that very sort of mournful, like, I know, like he realizes that he missed so
Yeah.
much with his all this time with his brothers and all these adventures they could have been on together. And I love that, he's like, "It's not working. It's not working." Very impatient, very impatient.
Yeah.
And she just grabs his hand and puts her hand on his, and I'm like, this is just such a perfect moment here. And then it's that wide shot from behind with like the sunset as they're just sitting there sort of meditating. And I'm going to say this comes
Yeah.
into play in the next episode. I don't know if you caught it, but I think he's kind of been fixed. I'll put that in quotes. I think the tremor might be gone based on a certain thing that happens in the next episode. I'll be curious if
Okay.
you spotted it. But I
Okay.
just love all the moments here because it's kind of really bringing Crosshair to that sort of inner peace. It's like I don't need to be this tough guy. I can, I can have emotions. I can open myself up to other possibilities here. Because old
Mhm.
Crosshair would have been like, "Fuck you, kid." I'm out of here and just walked away, right? The
Yeah.
fact that he
Right.
even sat on that rock next to her shows how much he's come to love and respect her. Like, okay, well, nothing else is
Mhm.
working. I'll trust you. You trusted me. You trusted me when you shouldn't have, probably. You trusted me. I'm going to trust you in this process. And I loved it. I thought it was just a beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful moment. Absolutely loved it.
Yep.
Rest of
Yep.
the
And I
episode,
think
kind of
all
trash, but
I mean, I think the rest of the episode is for people who don't wanna have, like, a slow, contemplative,
yeah.
psychological episode, so they're like, "Hey, look, space crocodiles.
Yeah.
Yay, isn't that fun?" But, like, really what this episode really is about is this dynamic, I think. Ugh, alright.
Yeah.
So,
Let's get
let's
to the
get
big
into the
one.
episode where you sent me a message, you were like, "Get ready," and I was like, "Oh, no," and you're like, "Oh, yes."
No, no, it's good.
You are not wrong. So, episode 9, The Harbinger. All right. While we're waiting on Pabu from
Yeah.
word from Fennec, everybody's getting impatient, waiting for news. Instead of it coming in the form of a space zoom, instead we have Omega kind of wandering around with Batcher and discovering a very important ship in a cave. Drum roll!
You get
The
like
moment I've been waiting
And
for.
it's right away too. They don't wait to the
Yeah.
end of the episode. It's like, no, no,
But
no. We're bringing Asajj Ventress in, and we're giving you her the entire episode. And I
yeah.
did read about this. It was Dave Filoni, I think, that decided he's like, hey, we're going to bring Asajj Ventress in, and I guess like the writers of the show, whatever, were like, yes, yes, because there is there. Now you are not a fan of the Dark Disciple book, is that correct? And sort of how
I
Asajj
mean, I'm
Ventress
not a
is.
I'm not a fan of what happens to Asajj. I'm also
Okay,
not really a romance person, so,
Okay,
like, it
okay. I
wasn't
wasn't sure.
necessarily
I've
for
never read
me.
the book. I do know the
Okay.
basic story of how it all goes, and her and Quinlan Voss,
Mhm.
who is still running around in the galaxy according to Obi-Wan, the TV show. He's out there. He was
Mhm.
on the path
Yep.
or whatever.
Oh, lord.
So maybe we'll get Quinlan Voss coming at some point in time. I don't. I wasn't exactly sure your feelings on it because I don't think that story is necessarily bad. Like I don't dislike it or anything like that. But I was concerned about like if you really had a problem with Asajj's, I guess, last canon story in that Dark Disciple book and how it all
I
goes
mean,
down compared to
it's not
Nif.
what I wanted for her. Yeah,
What'd you want
what
for
I
her?
wanted for her I wanted her and Ahsoka to hook up, like, they not hook up, for
Oh,
them to
well,
link up,
okay, okay. I was
sorry,
like,
link
wow.
up. Because when we saw their team ups on Clone Wars, it was so great, and
Hmm.
I feel like sh now obviously I feel like she's on a bit of a crosshair journey of her own, like a slower burn crosshair journey, and I think I feel like she's gonna play a part in whatever the end game is for this when they if they do try to take Tantus. Um, but I wanted to see her kind of I feel like she earned a happy ending, and she gets a hero's ending in that book,
Yeah,
but I don't know, I guess
because
I'm just
Dooku
tired. I
kills her,
don't
right? She jumps in front of the Force lightning, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
sacrificed
I mean,
herself.
like, that's great. Like, I think in terms of a story arc is great, but I guess I don't necessarily need to see women sacrifice themselves anymore.
Well,
I wanted to see her right off into the sunset,
good
you
thing
know?
she's a witch of Dathomir, so she never
Right.
dies.
I
Her
mean,
story's never
that's
over.
which is interesting, right? Because I do feel like to some degree the message of Dathomir has largely been about genocide and tragedy, and so to hear that maybe that's not necessarily the end game makes me very excited for where we left things with Ahsoka. It makes me very hopeful. Although, how do you cast a live action Ventress? Like, how do you do it? I don't even know.
I don't know. I
Because that voice and that physicality, I don't
It would be
know. I mean, I guess it's
difficult.
possible.
You'd have to. I mean, yeah, just like the way she looks, the sharpness of her face and stuff. You have to have prosthetics, and I don't know. Do you get the voice actor to just dub all the lines? Just get an actor in there to do the thing, but then you have the voice actor come in. Maybe the voice actor could play her. I don't know if she does.
Maybe.
I don't know if she does live action stuff or she's just a voice actor. Um,
But that purr of a voice is
oh
such a
yeah,
big part of it.
her
Yeah.
voice is the big thing with it. I mean, it's like
Mhm.
it's so unique and unsettling
Mhm.
in places. But yeah, I will point out
Yeah.
before we get into Asajj, there was that moment. This episode opens with Crosshair helping the lady on the boat, the fishing boat, and she's like, "Thank you, Crosshair." And Ricker's like, "You made a friend," like slapped him on the back. I'm like, Crosshair's doing his good works, no matter how small they may
Yeah.
be. He's like, all right, I'm trying to like help out this nice lady on the boat with her fishing and stuff like that. And even Wrecker's like, oh yeah, you got a girlfriend over there if you want, Crosshair. Go meet that girl. I like that.
I love it. I love it. So, yes. So Asajj shows up, and of course, my queen has all the answers. She explains to them what the M count is and how it signifies like someone's connection to the Force.
And she
And
does
then
say everybody's got an M count. Just like
yeah,
George Lucas said, everybody's got midichlorians in it. So it's one of those things where again, Filoni is staying true to what George Lucas wanted. What?
Sabine, the whole Sabine getting the Force. Mm. Okay,
Technical difficulties. Magneto. Hopefully this
you
works.
have a gift.
Hopefully this works. We're back. You might see a weird little splice cut there, but we'll figure it all out. So
Yes. All
where we
right.
were
So
talking,
Ventress is
Asajj kicking some
kicking ass.
ass.
Yes, she's kicking everybody's ass, and I love that whole they're so outmatched, and from the second it starts where she's just like dodging all of the blaster
She's
bolts,
so
just
confident too. It's just
knocks
awesome.
everything out of their hands. It's great. It's fun to see, and it's one of those things where we know her so well that when she is saying those things like, you're this is not going to end well for you. Like we know kind of what that actually means, and that's it's just a fun character moment that feels a little like a reward for being a longtime fan of the franchise. It feels really satisfying to see that, but I also think there's really interesting things happening in the fight in that shows kind of character growth and who and where she is in this moment. Yeah, like yeah, she's got a really awesome new haircut, but there was a time where she was so, like, cutthroat in the way that she fought, and here it feels very defensive fighting. Like, she could just absolutely obliterate these guys, but it's very like, a keto style where she's just, like, kind of turning their force against themselves and leaving them largely unharmed until there's one little bit of force choking.
Well, I,
Just
I
a gentle
love
force choke.
I love like when they're right about to fight and they all pull out their guns and she just force pulls them all the way. She's like, "No cheating," and then I was just like, "Like this is so good, like this is so good." And it's also emphasized because they keep cutting away to Omega and Batcher
Uh-huh.
trying to get this flower before the sun goes
Yeah.
down, right? So it's just like,
Yeah.
what the hell is happening during this fight? Cuts back and there's she's just kicking ass. And I mentioned this while we were on the technical difficulties section, but eventually Crosshair puts up a fight against her. He's the only one that really puts up somewhat of a fight. I mean, he still gets his ass beat down. Don't get me wrong, but he blocks some of her stuff. He
Yep.
actually twists her arm, and she has to like twist around to get out of it. But eventually, he gets a
Mhm.
sniper rifle and he shoots. And he does. The only reason he misses is not because he has a tremor, but he misses because she moves out of the way because she's got the force. But
Yeah.
if she didn't, that would have hit straight on. So my
Yeah.
theory is that Omega is basically getting Crosshair back up to his maximum power potential here. We're going to get that
Mhm.
awesome sniper back for when they eventually take down Tantus and set the Emperor's plans back. Oh, what 30 years? With all the cloning and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Because it's going to be, I predict a Bad Batch is going to be the. I don't know how many are going to make it out of it. They might not all make it out, but they're going to be the ones that are going to set the Empire and Palpatine's whole plan back which is why it's taken so long to build all this shit back up. Like Hemlock's toast, all these great scientists are toast, and so
Mhm.
that's going to be the explanation, the cleaning up, the janitorial duty that Mr. Filoni's doing
There you go.
to try to explain, J.J. Abrams' horrible writing, or whatever. So that's my prediction.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right on. I mean, although, this has subverted our expectations quite a bit. So
Yeah,
maybe there's another little wrinkle or twist that we don't see coming,
true.
but that seems to be where we're headed. I mean, based on all of the psychology and the stuff that we're dealing with our characters, this feels like those are going to be the kinds of payoffs that they're going to go and need.
Yeah,
I do love how no one can resist Omega. Even Asajj Ventress is ultimately charmed by
yeah.
her, like, and so quickly, because there's something so, like, deeply pure and lovable about her that again, she like the curmudgeons, like the dead inside curmudgeons, like, she brings them back. She
Well, you
pulls them
you
back.
need
She's doing it with the crosshair and with her.
we were talking earlier with regards to the acolyte and potentially sort of corrupting people's views of Yoda, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the reason why a lot of these characters work, because yes, we want to live in that sort of morally gray sort of space, but we also have to have characters that are just like, I'm pure good, right? I'm just a good person, and
Mhm.
people will gravitate to those. We don't want to corrupt every single character out there in
Yeah.
such a way where, okay, literally everything is gray when you're dealing with like these operatic space sort of, our myths and stuff like that. There's got to be at least those characters where you're like, you know what, those were the people that were on the side of good. These are the people like Palpatine. If you're going to try to tell me a story where Palpatine was actually a pretty good guy and then he just decided, well, I'm just going to fall into this and I became corrupted and it's a tragedy that no, fuck that. Palpatine is evil through and through. He should have been evil from the very beginning. Don't tell me a story where he was a good dude at one point, because it just ruins it. It just ruins it. So I think Omega is that sort of vessel for this. You disagree? You think
Okay.
Palpatine should have been
I
a
mean,
good
I
guy
would
corrupted?
I would just say counterpoint Dooku.
Right. But what I'm saying is you still have to have the characters who are just bad and the characters who
Yeah.
are just good. You don't want to make everything the exact same, like, well, this person, like, for example, a Kylo Ren thing in the sequels. What I didn't like about what their choices, I was like, make him just want to be evil. That was his choice. I choose the dark
Yeah.
side. I killed my father. This is the choice I made, and that's the choice I'm going down. No more redemption, no anything like that. With Anakin, it's different because Anakin had ulterior motives. He's trying to save Padme and his unborn child, and like he had conflicting things that was going on, and what the Jedi was doing. Kylo Ren didn't have anything like that. It should have just been him as straight up evil all the way through. But when you start like redeeming literally every single character, it becomes one of those things like, well, I want that sort of cipher that's just good, or that cipher that's
Okay.
just evil. Not every character needs to live in a gray space, in my view.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
Omega's great, and that's why I think all these
Me
morally
too.
gray characters are like, Jesus Christ, this is just a whole pure, awesome chick. I don't want
Yeah.
to see her fall to the dark
Okay.
side. I don't think she should ever fall to the dark side of the Force. She
Yeah.
shouldn't.
No, that's true. I mean, and it makes her like here's the thing is she has absolutely has agency, but she also it's smart in that she is a motivating factor for all of the characters around her, and yet she still exists and as a whole person and has a ton of agency. And I think that's part of the magic of Omega. I think
Yeah,
in the early, like the first season, you could see it going a different way, but they've done a really good job of fleshing her out and like giving her a lot of not she's not precocious. She's got spunk. Those things are part of her, but she's not she the treasure episodes were dangerously tipping into like precocious child. And I think kicking this off by giving her kind of a few episodes where we got to see her grow up and get some edge to her has really, really benefited
yeah.
the character.
But you don't want to
Um,
betray the core of who she is like that. I
that's
will
true.
never
That's
give
fair.
up on. So it's very Luke
Mhm.
Skywalker-ish, honestly. It's,
Yeah.
I'm not going to give up on my father. Shut the lightsaber
Mhm.
off. Like, you're not going to have me kill my dad. there's good in him. I'm not going to do it, sort of thing. And that's those types of characters. When people gravitate to them, they that's something to aspire to. That's the
Yeah,
ideal. Like we all live in morally gray areas throughout our lives at some point in time, right? Where we do shitty things to other people. We say things like we look at these kind of characters in media. It's like that's like the ideal. I wish I could be this person. Like, no matter what, in the face of whatever shit torture I've gone through, whatever, I still believe the best in people, and I'm not going to lose that. And so for certain characters, whether it's Luke, whether it's Omega, whatever, that sort of, that's where they're born and their core comes from. That, don't change that. Don't change that, because
fair.
it always ends poorly. It always ends poorly.
Fair, fair. I see what you're saying. I mean, this is based on like very specific archetypes, and
Yeah.
yeah, and some of that is maybe like the bleeding in of like modern sensibility. Yeah. All right. Fine. I'm convinced. Okay. So we had our first trial. She didn't do so great. Second trial, she succeeded and came back to see like a disaster in progress. Um,
Awesome. Set the stage. Set the stage when she walks in. I posted that meme. Maybe I'll plug it into
the
the
meme is
episode.
put the meme in. It is so freaking perfect. I laughed, literally laughed out loud when you put that meme in there. It is she walks in, everybody like I think it's Wrecker. She's holding up with a force choke. Everybody else is just a pile of beat
Got
up ass
lightsaber
freaking
out.
bodies.
It's
Yeah,
so good.
it's
And
incredible.
Omega's
And
like,
it's such like
what?
fully caught in the act, but yeah, that was hilarious,
Yes.
and just so perfectly Asajj fit. Like, the way that they perfectly crafted this for Asajj, like, all everybody was perfectly doing exactly what they were supposed to do as their characters, but it was the kind of, like, awesome respect and showcase for the awesomeness and the return of such an
Oh
amazing
yeah.
character. I was delighted.
You could
Well
tell that
done.
the writers were like,
Kudos.
we're bringing Asajj back. We can't mess this up. Like, we cannot
Mhm.
mess this up. Again, I always get back to the core of the character. What are the core traits of these characters that make people love them? If Asajj would have shown up and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'll help you out. I've changed. I'm
Right.
good. I'm good now. I met Quinlan, and we fell in love, and I'm good now. I'm different." People would have been like, "That's not the character that I came to know
Yeah.
and love." And they kept the core of Asajj, and it was awesome.
Mm.
Awesome.
Mm-mm-mm.
So good.
Yes. And so one more trial left. The jury is out about our little Omega. And this one is going to be at sea, where they have to go and see if she can commune with animals. I feel like the one thing we've definitely seen is that she can commune with animals. I mean,
Yeah.
have you met Badger? But okay.
Yeah.
Um, and I actually, so talking about characters and evolution, I actually really love the evolution in her that we see in this scene. Sort of the like when she peacefully reaches out to the animals and then accidentally summons like a kraken essentially.
Yeah.
And we get like our this is sort of like the in the previous episode we have like all the little monsters and the action beats. We have this big one, but it's actually not the violence that resolves it when the Bad Batch comes in. They're like making it worse. It's this very like peaceful, quiet connection that she has to the animal, the empathy that she has, and the way that she is able to like kind of push past sort of I don't know, whatever the animalistic urges are to like see each other in that moment. That is not the Asajj we knew. Her
Right.
chopping off all tentacles, the Asajj we knew.
Yep.
And instead we see quiet strength in her. That I think is kind of great to see because I love her. And I
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
seeing peace is something I want for her.
Oh yeah, totally. It's cool, and that's the thing when we're like, keep the core of the character, but allow them to also grow in a way that doesn't betray those sort of core
Mhm.
values and traits, and I think they did this perfectly. And just as Omega, kind of like as the analog to Luke, for example, where she's like, I bet you don't even know how to do this. It's very Luke and Yoda, right? Where Luke's like, I'm
Mhm.
not gonna lift this. It's too hard to lift this X-wing out of the thing. I
Yes!
can't do this.
Oh
And,
my
and
god.
and Omega's like, I bet you can't even do any of this shit that you're telling me to do. Like, who are you? What do you want me to do here? Reach out to what? She's like, everything. And it's not like Asajj is giving her any specific direction. She's just general, like,
Yeah.
reach out, right? And then when she shows it, it's very Yoda pulling the X-wing out of Dagobah
Yeah.
swamp and being like, you see, this can be done. And I love that, Asajj, even in this cool fight sequence out in the water with the Kraken, and we forgot what's probably my favorite moment of this episode before the Kraken shows up. And this is
Uh-huh.
when
Yeah.
Crosshair and Hunter and Wrecker are, I think Crosshair's like, this was a bad idea to put them out there or whatever. And Hunter's
Yeah.
like, we
Yeah.
told Omega, we told him, and Wrecker's got the binoculars, and he zooms in, and you just hear go, look right. I fucking laughed my ass off. I had to
Yeah.
pause the goddamn episode and
Yeah.
rewind it because it was so funny. It's the way that just the voice, because like Burger's like, oh, how does she know we're looking at her? It was so good. It just like the look on Asajj's face, like she knew
Yes.
exactly. It was so perfect. It's like that weird zoom
Yes.
sort of thing,
Yeah.
and it's just like,
Yeah.
she just gives him like the stink eye. It scares the
Yeah.
shit out of Wrecker. Like Wrecker's like, oh my god, it's so good. Like little moments like that where it's like, this is funny, but it's
Yes.
not like Jar Jar stepping in crap funny, right? It's like
No.
it's organically humorous moments within Star Wars
Yeah.
that come from like just the way the characters are, rather than we're gonna make a
Yeah.
jokey joke sort of thing. And I thought it was so funny. Loved it.
Yes.
Loved it.
Agree. Agree. It's the absurdity, you know what I mean? Because it's like a Saj, and then like
Yeah.
it's oh.
I'm gonna freeze frame that. That'll be the thumbnail. Just Rachel going.
No!
So good. It was so good.
Oh,
Loved it.
so good. So, eventually after the test, she has to go and break my heart and leave, although hopefully it's not the last. I mean, it's great to have her at all, but I really was hoping she'd be here for at least an arc. But she kind of intimates to Omega that she does not have a high M count. However, I think the takeaway is
But
she
that's the
does.
thing. That's the other thing I want to say about this, because Crosshair is the one that notices she's lying first. Because as soon as Omega
Yeah.
walks by, he's like, "You're lying," right? So Crosshair knows
Mhm.
exactly that she's lying, and we know Asajj knows that Omega's got the Force. I mean, Force users can feel other Force users. That's how Force users are found, because they can just kind of
Yeah.
feel themselves in the Force. And Asajj is ridiculously
Mhm.
powerful. She knows that Omega is this, and then she mentions to them at this point, it's like, look, she can be helped, she can be trained, and she'll have to leave you guys to do that. And then they're like, that'll never ever happen. I predict that this is going to happen. Like, this is going to happen at some point in time. um I'm just going to throw it out there. I think Omega is going to become some apprentice to Asajj Ventress. Something Padawan, something.
I would love that. That is an adventure I would happily sign up for, because we were kind of, I don't know if it was during the break, but we were talking about like how do you cast a live action Asajj Ventress? And I think the answer is you don't. You make another animated series. And yeah, I love Omega. I don't want to think that she doesn't survive whatever happens on Tantus. So then where is she? So where does she go? I could see her taking off with Asajj, I don't know, to Dathomir or something. I don't know.
And that's the thing. Dave Filoni loves to bring his characters into live action that he's created.
Mm.
In theory, because Asajj also says when she leaves, because Crosshair tells her, is like, I can't tell what side you're actually on, and Asajj is like, I'm on my own. And then Hunter's like, well, aren't you scared that the Empire is going to come hunt you down because you have a high M count? She's like, they can try, but I still have many lives left in me, or a few lives still left in me, or whatever. She's got to show up. like, Dave Filoni is gonna bring her into live action, right? I mean, I don't know, like, how long her species lives, I guess, but fast forward, what, 25, 30 years? She could still be alive. She could be on Dathomir where they're going there, where Thrawn and all them are going there right now. I mean,
Right.
she could be there. For all we know, Omega could be there. Could be, 40-year-old Omega hanging out with her there. I don't know, but I cannot imagine a situation in which Dave Filoni does not put Omega and Boba Fett in the same room together. I can't imagine that
Right.
that doesn't happen. I can't imagine. So
Well, there's the Fennec Shan connection. I can yeah, there's a lot of connective tissues between these
Boba
characters
Fett's her
that it
brother,
wouldn't be a stretch.
and
Yeah.
they'd be the same
But I
age
mean
roughly.
right, right, because they are both aging
They're
normally.
aging normally, where the Bad Batch, they're going to die
Yeah.
off. All the other clones age super fast, and they all die off.
Although Boba Fett has to be older, right? Because he's quite a bit older when he's teaming up with Fennec Shand
In well, I'm trying to think. So in the
in Book
Clone
of Boba
Wars,
Fett.
well, see that's the thing because Tamora Morrison is actually older than what the character should actually be. So
Right.
it would be one of those. Be one of those weird
It's that Tatooine
situations
son.
where
It's
you'd
the
have,
Tatooine son.
yeah,
Yeah.
you'd have to
He
sort
is
of
Obi-Wan disease.
yeah, you'd have to explain it somehow. But like in Clone Wars, Fennec Boba's like a kid. Because remember that
Yeah.
episode where Boba's like 15 years old or something, and Fennec Shan, all the bounty hunters around there, he's like, "Look, man, he's acting like a punk ass kid, but he's
Yeah.
still running, sort of things." He'd be the same
Yeah.
age roughly as Omega, and I cannot
Okay.
imagine that. And they're I cannot imagine that Dave Filoni's not going to put those characters in some form, whether it's live action or animated, together at some point.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a coincidence that we have the witches coming back and like circling around Dathomir and the return of Asajj Ventress, like and all those freaking coffins. Like there are shenanigans afoot. Yeah,
She's coming
yeah.
back. She's coming back in
I,
live action. It's going to
I mean,
happen.
I'm fine with it. I think it's a very tricky casting, but there's an infinite number of people out there. I'm sure there's somebody that's going to be great.
What's
I
like
just you got to
people
be able to do that voice.
like
Yeah,
Thrawn doesn't look exactly like Thrawn in the cartoon, and
but
Cad
he
Bane.
sounds exactly like him.
Yeah, Cad Bane does. Yeah, that's the thing. Like the voice, just cast the actress. I'll have to look her up and see if she actually does live action stuff. Because if she does, just
Mhm.
cast the voice actor in the role and put her in the stuff and
Yeah.
go your way. It'd be awesome. And awesome. So yeah, she sort of takes off. I did write down a couple things here that I think was funny. Another great comedic moment for Asajj when they're first on the boat and they're going out there and Omega's smiling at her and she goes, "Stop smiling, it's unsettling." I thought that was I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
The whole moment where, and we've seen this before. Ahsoka does this with space whales and stuff like that, where the Force users who can talk to creatures and calm them down and things of that nature. We've
Mhm.
seen many sort of Jedi do this kind of thing. Maybe she learned this from Quinlan, that kind of thing. But I love when Omega's like, "Oh my God, you did it! You actually did it!" And she's like, "Don't act so surprised." Like she just dismissive, like, "What are you acting surprised?" And then there's that moment in the ship, that like 3 seconds where Omega, it's that wide shot. They're all sitting there in the ship. They're all exhausted about what just happened. And Omega's like, "Well, that was fun, wasn't it?" And they all just like look at her. They don't say a word. They're just like, um, but yeah, the fact that also
Oh, I
Asajj
love it.
recognizes when they fly in, they're shooting the Kraken, where she's like, "They're
Mhm.
making it worse," and she tell you like, "You got to tell them to
Yeah.
stop because I can handle
Yeah.
this on my own," sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think that this was an awesome episode. I thought this was
Mhm.
fucking great. I loved this
Yeah.
episode, and I mean, we're gonna go to Tantus.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Rex is out there. Everyone's gonna get together, and they're gonna go to Tantus. We got 6 more episodes left. What do
How?
you suspect? Because I'm not gonna go to Tantus immediately, obviously. How do you see the next few episodes going? What are
I
we
mean,
doing
well,
after this?
let's catalog the like sort of dangling threads. There is obviously whatever's going on with Omega's M count. There is what's happening on Tantus. There is the clone assassins. What else is going on? These are more recent things. I'm trying to think of
Yeah,
what the
they're
other
they
dangling
want
plot
to,
threads
yeah,
are.
because part of the Tantus thing also is they want to free all the clones. That's the
Right.
background thing, that they want to free all the clones that are on Tantus. And I don't know that they necessarily know exactly what Tantus is. I mean, they know that there's some sort of experiments going on, but they don't know what the M count is. They don't know anything. Their objective is to free all of those clones,
Mhm.
in whatever way they can. I'm just, I'm excited because I don't exactly know where this is going over the next few
Right.
episodes, because they're not giving us these sort of side treasure adventures for the most part. Everything has pretty
Thank
much had
God.
some sort of impact on the story. Maybe the Fennec Shan one wasn't super important, but six more episodes. They're dropping two next week. I did see that, so it's going
Okay.
to be a
So
two
that's another
episodes,
like another arc. Yeah.
another at least two episode thing, and you know that there's going to have to be something with Hemlock. They're going to get their revenge somehow. I like. Do they succeed and they kidnap Omega and they bring her back uh, to Tantus, and then they got to go try to save her and rescue her again? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how this is all going to, because they
I
haven't even
don't
found Tantus
know.
yet. I don't know.
I hope that's not the case because that feels more formulaic than this has been so far. I feel like but I that being said, we know that Cad Bane's gotta come back at some point. Is he gonna be the one that, like, actually successfully grabs her? I
That's
don't
possible because
know.
he was actually in the trailer. Like, they showed
Yeah.
Cad Bane in the trailer. So yeah, and there's other
Mhm.
bounty. They've established there's other bounty hunters looking for her. So Hemlock, even those clones in the few episodes back was like, or remember the Nazi governor guy, whatever. He's like, oh, you're the girl that Hemlock's looking for. Like, everybody
Yes.
knows that she's a
Yes.
target. So I could buy it if Cad Bane takes her. I could buy
Mhm.
that. That's something like,
Yeah.
all right, maybe Boba Fett
Yeah.
shows up at some
Well, I
point.
was gonna say, where is Boba Fett? Is he actually with the bounty hunters? Because I could see him that group, maybe there's that, like, crew of bounty hunters, that he was rolling with at that point. Like, are we gonna see is that where we're gonna see Omega and Boba Fett meet for the first time?
Maybe.
Um That would be really interesting to see. I'm also really curious about what's gonna happen. I was trying to scroll and find her name, but the female, clone that's still on Tantus, that
Oh, yeah, yeah,
feels
yeah,
like an open question of what's happening there.
yeah.
So I mean, this is going to end on Tantus. I don't
It's
know
got to. Yeah.
if, like, maybe Crosshair gets taken. Like, I don't and they use him we know that one of the things that Hemlock does is use people as bait because the whole reason that he originally had Cad Bane and Fennec Jan going after Omega was because they were trying to use it to, like, twist Nala Se's arm. So, I don't know.
Yeah, that was another
Maybe
interesting revelation in the Fennec Shan episode, where Fennec Shan says, "Look, I let her go because Nala
yeah,
Se hired me to protect her, but then she thought you guys it would she'd be better if she was with you, and I let her go. She didn't escape my clutches. I kind of let her. I dropped the bounty, sort of
yeah,
thing. Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to see where this goes. I'm sad that this is ending. I feel like another season of this would just be fantastic. I've heard rumors that there's going to be like an Echo Rex spin-off show. I don't really want that. Like, I just don't. I think I'm kind of over clone stuff for now. I've seen
that's
so
fair.
much of it.
There's
Not
been a
that I don't
lot.
like Rex and Wolf and Echo and all those, but I would like to. I really want that, just sort of Asajj Omega thing, like
Yes,
going out doing weird shit. I don't know what they'd be doing around this time, but I trust Dave Filoni to have some awesome idea to be able to give that to me. But we'll see. I mean, I'll watch
right.
whatever he puts out. And I also did see an interesting theory that said the Tales from the Jedi is coming out. There's a new season of that coming out, and there's a rumor going around that we're going to see a lot more of Asajj in that kind of setting, like what they did with Dooku, but
Oh,
showing Asajj stuff. Maybe you'll see how Asajj came
yep.
back from the dead in something like
No, that's it.
that.
That's it.
So
That's it. Yep. Nope. That we're gonna see a single episode or a two arc episode of visions of her. Like, we're gonna see her get dropped off on the planet. We're gonna see what happens next. I bet you. I think you're
Yeah,
absolutely right.
we'll see.
Which I watch. That's great. I'm into
Oh
it.
yeah, I'll watch whatever Dave Filoni puts out. I mean, it's just like
I
he's
mean,
got me
honestly.
hook, line, and sinker. I mean, but yeah, that's it. I don't have anything else. Do you have anything
No,
else? Okay.
no. I
Well,
just say I'm loving this season, and I know we went into it a little afraid, because it's the final season. Is it going to be the season of expediency? Are they gonna waste a bunch of time with like treasure episodes? And I would say there even the one that's not that great has Finnick Shan in it, so it's great.
yeah.
This has been no complaints
I think honestly, this has probably been my favorite season so far, just because there is no filler thus far. And of course, like my
by
big
a
complaint,
mile.
big complaint last season was like, "Where's Crosshair?" Like he was gone for 10 episodes. You never even saw him. Like, "Where's my
Yeah.
boy Crosshair?" Now I'm just getting everything. So he just needs to ask. Oh, that's the other thing. We forgot to mention the gentleman that is Crosshair. So
Oh.
after that whole thing, when Crosshair again is the first one to run out there to get Omega when they got the ship down. He grabs her by the hand, pulls her up, and he reaches out and offers his hand to Asajj. And Asajj looks at him and takes his hand, and he helps the ladies up onto the thing. I was like, this is just so cool. It just needs to be Asajj, Crosshair, and Omega going off on space adventures. That's what the next show is.
Dude,
That's what it
I
needs
would
to be.
watch hell, those freaking grumps together with her would be
I
hilarious.
know. It'd be amazing. It would be so good. It'd be so cool. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for another episode of Nobody's Listening here on the Outpost Unknown YouTube channel. I don't know when we'll be back at some point once we've watched a few more episodes. We'll drop, hit that notification bell. I guess that's what all the kids on YouTube do today to make sure you got
Yeah.
that new episode. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.